Chapter 1684. All of the righteous faction's murderous aura surged as they charged towards Baimei Daoist, and he immediately fell into a sea of people's war. There was no need for Tang Zheng to make a move. These people wished they could kill him with their own hands. Those few puppets could only kill instinctively, and in the end they were not a match for so many people, and were quickly subdued, while Baimei Daoist's murderous aura surged, and was much more powerful than the puppets. Just as the righteous faction's people approached him, they died on the spot. However, the other righteous faction's people were like a tide, advancing wave after wave, not fearing death at all, as if they would not give up until they killed Baimei Daoist. The righteous faction's people were either injured or killed, but Baimei Daoist was getting braver as he fought. Tang Zheng slightly frowned. This situation was not good. If the righteous faction's people died, it would be Tang Zheng's loss, because the righteous faction's people were still very useful to him. You still dare to resist stubbornly, surrender without a fight. Tang Zheng roared righteously. His body was like a swan, flying in front of Baimei Daoist, and the other righteous faction's people were immediately forced far away by his aura, unable to get close to Baimei Daoist, and naturally their lives were saved. Tang Zheng directly faced Baimei Daoist, revealing a look of disdain. Baimei Daoist stared at Tang Zheng with fire in his eyes, and said hysterically, "Tang Zheng, if not for you, I would not have reached this stage today. All of this is because of you. Go die." Whoosh! The horsetail whisk once again expanded, and thousands of strands of whisk attacked as fast as lightning. Tang Zheng stretched out his finger, and lightly tapped the air. The hidden mystic sword appeared out of thin air. Following the direction of his finger, it swiftly chopped down. Boom! In the midst of the loud sound, the horsetail whisk exploded, turning into pieces. No longer able to grow strands of whisk, this treasure was completely destroyed. The hidden mystic sword's momentum did not decrease, and continued forward, instantly arriving in front of Baimei Daoist. A sharp sword aura flew into his body. His entire body trembled, as if he had been immobilized, and could no longer move. The originally berserk aura vanished like smoke in thin air, completely silenced. With just one move, the killing Baimei Daoist was defeated. The other people's gazes towards Tang Zheng changed again and again, in their hearts. Too powerful. Tang Zheng lightly clapped his fingers, and the hidden profound sword flew back into his body. He walked in front of the White Eyebrows Daoist, and although the White Eyebrows Daoist hated him to death, he could only stare at him and roar in anger. "Tang Zheng, what did you do to me?" "Baimei Daoist, 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 Baimei Daoist Da. What are you going to do?" Baimei Daoist's face was filled with fear, and quickly asked. Tang Zheng raised the corner of his mouth, but did not answer his question. But then Baimei Daoist's body made a loud sound, and Baimei Daoist madly screamed. "Ah!" The screams resounded through the clouds, causing the others to be moved, but not many people pitied him. Instead, they felt very carefree, and very relieved. But in their hearts, they were a little curious. What did Tang Zheng do to Baimei Daoist, to make him suffer so much? You destroyed my Yuanying." After a long time, Baimei Daoist finally had the strength to tell the truth, but he no longer had the strength to shout. He was like a dead dog. When the others heard this, their hearts turned cold, and they all looked at Tang Zheng. He actually destroyed Baimei Daoist's Yuanying. To a cultivator, the Yuanying was the most fundamental. It was the source of all strength. And when the Yuanying was destroyed, their martial arts would naturally disappear. Baimei Daoist relied on his martial arts to strut around, so Tang Zheng destroyed his martial arts, making him lose his most precious thing, and then he would have nothing left. After the sword light destroyed the Yuanying, Baimei Daoist once again regained his freedom, but his body was weak, and he fell to the ground like a dead shrimp. He was no longer a threat. The others did not pity him. All of this was his own fault, and he could not blame anyone else. Tang Zheng took a step back and said, "I'll leave him to you. You can do whatever you want with him." The righteous faction once again surrounded Baimei Daoist. Baimei Daoist raised his head, fiercely looked around and said, "You are a group of traitors. I am the leader of the righteous faction, but you listen to the slanderous words of an outsider." "Shut up!" A roar rang out, interrupting Daoist's white brows' attempt to distort the truth. "You still have the face to talk about others. You are the most despicable and shameless. How do we deal with him?" Didn't we just say it? His actions are all capital crimes. He will die without a doubt. He will die without a doubt. The crowd did not let him go just because his yuanying was destroyed. Since he was already sentenced to death, then he must be executed to the end. The righteous faction looked at each other, and as if their hearts were in sync, they began to circulate their martial arts. Seeing this scene, Baimei Daoist was still in shock and hurriedly said, I already have no yuanying, you still want to kill me? No one answered him. But one by one, the treasured weapons flew up from the righteous path and flew towards Baimei Daoist. Ah! The blazing light enveloped Baimei Daoist, and he screamed in despair. Suddenly, the scream stopped abruptly. An earth-shattering boom erupted from the blazing light. Then, one by one, the magic treasures flew back into the hands of their respective owners. The light gradually dissipated, and Baimei Daoist's figure could no longer be seen. In that powerful attack, not even his bones were left. The righteous faction shared a common enemy, and could not help but heave a sigh of relief. This was revenge for their dead comrades. Seeing his father's fate, Gao Ming was so scared that his entire body went limp. He fell to the ground softly. He wasn't sad for his father, but he was completely frightened. He grieved for his father's death, and his heart was anxious. He didn't know what his fate would be. He raised his head in shock, looked at Yi Yuan, and said while trembling with fear, I have already done everything you asked for. Now can you let me go? How could Yi Yuan dare to let go of his life? He looked towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng understood and said, You have committed many evil deeds and secretly colluded with the enemy. You want to escape this calamity just like that. Do you really think that everyone is a fool? Ah, Shiming screamed and stammered. But you clearly promised me that once I told you the truth, you would let me live. Then you should first ask them if they agree. Tang Zheng pointed at Xiaobai and the others. Xiaobai took the hint and stepped forward. The ancestor and the others also glared at Dao Sheng with righteous indignation. If it wasn't for him informing them, the suicide valley wouldn't have been destroyed, and they wouldn't have had to flee to the wilderness. Of course I won't. Xiaobai closed in on Dao Sheng, revealing his killing intent. With so many of his subordinates dead and injured, how could he let Dao Sheng off so easily? You all went back on your word. Risking his life shouted. Haha, is there a need to talk about credibility with people like you who have no bottom line? Xiaobai asked disdainfully. Shi Ming had nothing to say in response. He had regretted countless things, but this time, it was finally his turn to suffer the consequences of his own actions. Yes, kill him. He is also a traitor of the righteous path. Seeing this, the other righteous path members all shouted out in unison, their killing intent soaring into the clouds. As everyone wishes, Xiaobai shouted loudly, and with a flick of his finger, a ball of flame emerged from his fingertip, quickly changing, and turning into a ball of flame that landed on Dao Sheng's body. Chapter 1685. 1 Second to Remember. Wonderful novel to read at any time. The white eyebrows movement and the sacrificing one's life. Everybody felt as if a mouthful of resentment had been released from their chests and abdomens. Gradually they calmed down, their mood also calmed down. What should they do next? This thought surfaced in everyone's mind. They looked at each other in dismay, and began to whisper to each other. Silence. Xiaobai suddenly roared loudly. Everyone turned their heads and looked at Xiaobai with a complicated expression. Xiaobai said in a clear voice, Now let me invite my master to speak. After saying that, he took the initiative to take a step back, exposing Tang Zheng to everyone. Tang Zheng coughed dryly, cleared his throat, and said in a deep voice, Everyone, as the leader of the Righteous Alliance, Baimei Daoist knowingly broke the law and secretly colluded with the enemy. Now that he has been executed, do you think this matter is over? Everyone's heart trembled, not understanding the meaning of Tang Zheng's words. This is only the beginning. Tang Zheng said decisively, Baimei Daoist colluded with Hao Tianwang, and Hao Tianwang sent troops to attack the Suicide Valley and returned in defeat. How do you think Hao Tianwang will vent his anger? Everyone revealed a suspicious expression, and became even more confused. All of this is because of Baimei Daoist, so Hao Tianwang will naturally vent his anger on him. Bai Mei Daoist and you are all of the same path, so will Hao Tianwang let you go? The powerful question made everyone speechless. After careful consideration, they realized that Tang Zheng was not an alarmist, and Hao Tianwang was very likely to vent his anger on them. Bai Mei Daoist is dead, then what should we do? Someone could not hold back and asked loudly. Tang Zheng was waiting for this question. He had to make the righteous path worry about their own survival, so that he could intervene. Do you have the confidence to fight against Hao Tianwang? Tang Zheng was not in a hurry to answer, but threw out another question. The righteous path looked at each other. No one had the courage or confidence to say that they could fight against Hao Tianwang, because they really did not have the strength. If you don't have the strength to fight against Hao Tianwang, then there is only one result: death. Tang Zheng said casually. The word death made everyone's hair stand on end, and their faces turned pale. It was as if Hao Tianwang had already arrived in front of them, and death was right in front of them. Wild Dog had an idea and said loudly, "But you have the strength to deal with Hao Tianwang." These words quickly ignited everyone's hope. Everyone looked eagerly at Tang Zheng. Wild Dog continued, "You exposed the true faces of Bai Mei Daoist and his son, and cleaned up the sect for the righteous path. In the future, with you leading the righteous path, won't we be able to fight against Hao Tianwang?" Wild Dog was a smart person. He had long known that Tang Zheng wanted to control the righteous path, but had not cut in. Now wasn't this the perfect opportunity to cut in? In the righteous path, only Wild Dog had the deepest relationship with Tang Zheng. This naturally needed him to bring it up. Otherwise, if he let Tang Zheng bring it up himself, wouldn't that be too degrading? Wild Dog was able to survive in the cracks because he had his own set of survival rules. If he could not understand these rules, then he would not have been able to survive until now. Tang Zheng gave Wild Dog a deep look, and there was a look of approval in the depths of his eyes. He had not misjudged Wild Dog. Wild Dog had helped him a lot. The righteous path had long been tempered over the years. They understood that in these troubled times, they needed to find a backer, only then could they survive. What kind of people were Hao Tianwang and King Wuling, and how powerful they were, they had long experienced. Therefore, they needed someone to stand in front of them, only then could they survive. That makes sense. Tang Zheng has cleaned up the sect for the righteous path, and his cultivation is extremely high. No one can compare to him. It is natural for him to be the leader of the righteous path. Someone agreed, and the voices of agreement grew louder and louder. Tang Zheng is the popular choice. We are sincerely convinced. Bai Mei Daoist's cronies were originally fence-sitters. Their boss was dead. How could they dare to be noisy? They were deeply afraid that Tang Zheng would pursue them. Instead, they were the ones who shouted the loudest. Of course, there was no lack of independent thinkers in the righteous path. They questioned. Tang Zheng is not a member of the righteous path. Can he be the leader of the righteous path, just because he is strong? If that's the case, doesn't that mean Hao Tianwang is more qualified to be the leader? As soon as these words came out, everyone fell silent. It was as if everyone was frightened by these words. Everyone looked at the person who spoke. It was actually the leader of Kingsaman, Taixuzi. Taixuzi seemed to have thrown caution to the wind. He said righteously, "Moreover, he is with the traitor of our sect. That makes him even more qualified to be the leader of the righteous path." Taixuzi had wanted to rely on Tang Zheng in the past. Moreover, Tang Zheng had saved everyone in Kingsaman. However, Tang Zheng was with Tian Chanzi, and Tian Chanzi was a traitor of Kingsaman. Taixuzi was an upright person. He could not get over the hurdle in his heart. Although everyone else agreed that Tang Zheng should be the leader, he could not sit by and do nothing. He boldly raised an objection. "Taixuzi, what nonsense are you talking about?" The others were afraid that Tang Zheng would be angry, so they all reprimanded him. Tang Zheng looked at Taixuzi deeply. He did not pay much attention to him in the past. He did not expect him to be so bold. He was not angry. Instead, he was happy. At least it proved that Taixuzi was an upright person. Taixuzi's expression changed when he was criticized by everyone. He was under great pressure, but he still insisted. "I'm telling the truth. It's just that you don't dare to say it. Moreover, this concerns Kingsaman's reputation. I have to say it. Looking at this scene, Heaven Monk's thoughts were extremely complicated. He had never thought of this scene before, and never thought that he would ruin Tang Zheng's plan. He knew that Tang Zheng needed the strength of the righteous faction. This was the most important factor in helping Xiao Bai reclaim the Outland. Moreover, the righteous faction also needed Tang Zheng. Without a strong leader like Tang Zheng, the righteous faction would be in a state of disunity. Their days in the Outland would be even more difficult, and they might even face a disaster. Even his master, King Simon, was no exception. Everyone looked at Tang Zheng. They did not know how he would respond. Tang Zheng knew that this was a tricky situation. He had to protect Tian Chanzi, which meant that he was standing against King Simon. This was an unsolvable problem. The only person who could solve this problem was Tian Chanzi. However, Tian Chanzi would rather die than talk about what happened in the past. Tian Chanzi knew that this was all on him. He was struggling in his heart. Taixuzi said, "If there's nothing to say, then the matter of the righteous faction's leader will have to be discussed later." Xiao Bai looked at Tang Zheng worriedly. He asked in a low voice, "Master, what should we do? Do you need me to shut Taixuzi up?" Tang Zheng shook his head. If he really did that, he would be no different from Bai Mei Daoist. In an instant, the originally favorable situation was ruined. Everyone felt as if 1,000 pounds of weight had been placed on their hearts. Many of the righteous path stared at Taixuzi indignantly, wishing that they could beat him up and shut him up. In such a dangerous environment like the sky beyond heaven, if the Heaven Monk did not stand up for them, how would they live their lives? Thump. Suddenly there was the sound of footsteps. Tian Chanzi walked forward and stood in front of Taixuzi. He said in a low voice, "King Simon said that I am a traitor. Because of what happened in the past, I do not want to ruin King Simon's reputation. Therefore, I am willing to bear this infamy. However, if I don't tell the truth now, not only will I bear the infamy, but I will also implicate Tang Zheng, who has always cared for me. Today, I will let you know who the real traitor of King Simon is." Please visit this website to read the latest novel. Chapter 1686. Tian Chanzi's words were powerful and resonating. Everyone's spirit was shaken as they pricked up their ears and stared at him with burning eyes. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up as the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. He had always believed that Tian Chanzi was innocent, and that there was definitely some inside story. It was just that Tian Chanzi was unwilling to mention it. Now it seemed that his eyes were right. There really was some inside story. Tian Chanzi was unwilling to mention it, because he was worried about King Simon's reputation. From this, it could be seen that he was fiercely protective of his sect. How could someone who was so protective of his sect be a traitor? Most of the people were in a gossipy mood, and couldn't wait to hear what Tian Chanzi had to say. Taixuzi's heartstrings trembled as his expression changed slightly. "What do you mean by this? Don't you hate traitors so much? I'll let you know who the real traitor is," Tian Chanzi calmly said. Taixuzi seemed to have a bad premonition as he braced himself and said, "I'd like to hear what you have to say." He firmly believed in the things passed down by his sect. Since generation after generation used Tian Chanzi as a negative example, then he must be extremely bad. He must be someone that King Simon deeply hated. Tian Chanzi took a deep breath and closed his eyes slightly, as if he was immersed in deep memories. His face revealed a complex expression. Sweetness, pain, happiness. All kinds of complex expressions interweaved on his face, as if he was drawing all kinds of gorgeous colors on a drawing board. Tian Chanzi opened his mouth and slowly spoke. Vivid scenes were displayed in front of everyone's eyes like a scroll painting. 1,000 years ago, King Simon was still a famous sect. 3 youths, 1 male and 2 females, entered King Simon's sect and became martial brothers and sisters. The oldest of them was given the name Tian Chanzi by the sect, and was the senior brother. The fairy-like girl was given the name Miao Yin. The other youth was given the name Tian Kanzi. The 3 martial brothers and sisters cultivated together, and comprehended together, as if they were one person. The stars changed and the 3 grew up. Their cultivation levels were gradually separated. Tian Chanzi's cultivation level was the highest, followed by Miao Yin, and Tian Kanzi's cultivation level was slightly lower and ranked 3rd. The three of them were the top figures of Kingseman's younger generation. Even in the entire cultivation world, they weren't inferior. In these 10 years, Tian Chanzi and Miao Yin fell in love with each other and secretly developed feelings for each other. However, Tian Chanzi also fell in love with Miao Yin. Tian Chanzi didn't reveal his relationship with Miao Yin out of consideration for his junior brother's feelings. Although it was widely rumored in Kingseman that Tian Chanzi was the next sect master, the sect master of Kingseman didn't make a decision arbitrarily. In order to test who was the most suitable candidate, he sent the three of them down the mountain to gain experience. Tian Chanzi didn't know this was a test for the sect master selection. However, Tian Chanzi eavesdropped on the conversation between the sect master and the elders and knew the significance of this experience. He knew that if he won this experience, he might become the next sect master. If he became the sect master, he would have a chance to be with Miao Yin. Therefore, during the experience, Tian Chanzi did his best to perform well. He destroyed the devil's nest and became famous. However, compared to him, Tian Chanzi's performance was more dazzling and his reputation was more prominent. Tian Chanzi sadly found that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't compete with Tian Chanzi. Jealousy and hatred grew in his heart. In order to achieve his goal, he began to use underhanded means. He even deliberately leaked information to the Devil's Army and attracted the Devil's Army to hunt him down. This experience didn't only involve the three of them. There were other outstanding young people in Kingseman who were led by Tian Chanzi. These people were surrounded by the Devil's Army and suffered heavy casualties. In the end, except for the three of them, the rest were all killed in battle and fled back to Kingseman. The sect leader flew into a rage and investigated the responsibility of the Heaven Monk, believing that he had undeniable responsibility for all of this. Tian Chanzi was punished by the sect master to reflect on his mistakes for 3 years. 3 years later, when he returned to the public, everything had changed. Tian Chanzi suddenly became an influential figure in Kingseman. Tian Chanzi didn't care. He didn't like to fight for power. Because he felt guilty about the death of his fellow sect members, he didn't care about the affairs of the sect. The only obsession in his heart was his junior sister, Miao Yin. The sect master of Kingseman passed away and passed the position to Tian Chanzi. He even betrothed Miao Yin to Tian Chanzi. Tian Chanzi was shocked and desperate. He had once expressed his love for Miao Yin to the sect master, and hoped that the sect master would let them be together. The sect master had already agreed. Tian Chanzi was deeply hurt when the sect master went back on his words. Seeing that Tian Chanzi and Miao Yin's wedding date was approaching, Tian Chanzi didn't want to see it happen. He left Kingseman without hesitation. While traveling outside, he had unintentionally caught a demon clan. And the demon clan had unintentionally revealed the matter of him cooperating with Tian Chanzi. Only then did Heaven Monk understand that the reason for his crushing defeat back then was because Tian Chanzi had leaked the news. Tian Chanzi, who had lost all hope, was reignited with fighting spirit and anger. He went back on his words in Kingseman and went to reason with Tian Chanzi. Tian Chanzi was already the sect master and had already married Miao Yin. Tian Chanzi naturally returned without success. Tian Chanzi didn't admit it at all. Instead, he slandered Tian Chanzi for colluding with the devil race. In addition, the elders in Kingseman found the death of the former sect master strange. They suspected that someone killed him, and it was someone very close to him. Tian Chanzi took the opportunity to pin the crime on Tian Chanzi. He said that Tian Chanzi killed the sect master because he saw that the position of sect master was hopeless. Tian Chanzi's methods were impressive. Although he hadn't been the sect master for long, he had already secretly controlled most of the people in Kingseman. When he gave an order, most of the people naturally denounced Tian Chanzi and wanted to capture him to avenge the former sect master. After a fierce battle, Tian Chanzi escaped with wounds all over his body. However, he didn't run away. Instead, he found his junior martial sister Miao Yin. After Miao Yin married Tian Chanzi, she gradually discovered his true colors. Naturally, she eloped with Tian Chanzi and left Kingseman. Tian Chanzi was furious. He sent out countless people to kill the two of them. He also announced Tian Chanzi's numerous crimes and nailed him on the pillar of shame as a traitor. Tian Chanzi and Miao Yin hid from place to place. In the end, Miao Yin died in the hands of the enemy. Before she died, she left a last wish for Tian Chanzi to find a way to return to Kingsaman and wash away the shame on him. Tian Chanzi was heartbroken when his beloved died. If it weren't for Miao Yin's last wish, he would have followed in her footsteps. Tian Chanzi already knew that the culprit was Tian Kanzi. The murder of the sect master and the so-called marriage arranged by the sect master were also orchestrated by Tian Kanzi. Therefore, Tian Chanzi had to collect detailed evidence in order to overthrow Tian Kanzi. Although Tian Kanzi inherited the position of sect master, the elders in Kingsaman still had the power to impeach the sect master. However, if he wanted the elders to listen to his grievances and evidence, there must be conditions. There was no chance for him to speak in front of them. The only condition was that he had to make a great contribution to Kingsaman. Unparalleled martial arts was one of the conditions. As long as Tian Chanzi found a set of unparalleled martial arts and offered it to Kingsaman, the elders would listen to his grievances. Unfortunately, in order to obtain the legendary ancient Tongtian scroll, his soul was unfortunately sucked into the scroll along with the Yin demon. To read the latest novel, please visit Chapter 1687. The Heaven Monk spoke tirelessly. The events of the past were full of twists and turns, causing people to be intoxicated by it, their hearts rising and falling. Many people were deeply attracted by the fate of the Heaven Monk, they suddenly realized. So this was the inside story of the past. Many people felt that it was unfair for him. Generations after generations of Kingsaman had labeled Tian Chanzi as a traitor. This was a great shame. It must have been Tian Chanzi's doing. Everyone gnashed their teeth at Tian Chanzi. How could there be such a despicable person in the world? Tang Zheng, Xiao Bai, and the others were the most familiar with Tian Chanzi. It was hard to imagine that Tian Chanzi, who was usually optimistic and cheerful, had such a complicated past. The pain he had suffered was moving, and under his usual, calm, or happy appearance hid a pain that ordinary people could not bear. Everyone was in awe of him. Tang Zheng looked at Tian Chanzi seriously. There were so many things he wanted to say, but he couldn't say them. Tian Chanzi couldn't hide the pain on his face. Recalling the past was tantamount to tearing open a scar that had been covered in dust for a long time. Taixuzi and the people of Kingsaman were stunned. This was completely different from what they had heard since they were young. Was there really so much inside story? Many people were skeptical. After all, they weren't like the others. They had deep feelings and respect for Kingsaman. It was hard for them to accept such subversive information. Taixuzi was shaken. His face turned pale and his lips trembled. After a long time he said, Tian Chanzi, since you have suffered so much, why didn't you say it earlier? Why did you only announce it now? Did you make it up on purpose? Tian Chanzi's mouth twitched. This is Kingsaman's scandal. Once exposed, Kingsaman's reputation will be ruined. As a person of Kingsaman, how can I sacrifice Kingsaman's reputation for myself? If this matter didn't affect Tang Zheng, I wouldn't let these dusty pasts see the light of day. I see. Everyone had an expression of sudden realization. They were filled with admiration, moved by Tian Chanzi's spirit of self-sacrifice, as well as his deep feelings for the Clear Void sect. Taixuzi's eyes kept changing. He couldn't tell whether Tian Chanzi was telling the truth or not. As the leader of Kingsaman, he didn't know what to do. Everyone looked at each other. They didn't know how to deal with this matter. Tang Zheng was moved. He understood that Tian Chanzi did all this for him. Since this was the case, he had the responsibility to wash away the shame on Tian Chanzi. Tang Zheng was moved. His expression was stern. He asked, Tian Chanzi, you collected evidence of Tian Songzi's crimes. Now you can announce it to everyone and prove your innocence. The others immediately grasped this key point. They looked at Tian Chanzi with anticipation and urged, yes, hurry up and announce the evidence of Tian Songzi's crimes. Then the truth will come to light. No one will suspect you anymore. Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Zheng with gratitude. He couldn't lose the evidence of Tian Songzi's crimes. After all, he had spent a lot of effort to obtain it. It was also the evidence to prove his innocence. Tian Chanzi hesitated for a moment. Under the encouraging and expectant gazes of Tang Zheng and the others, Tian Chanzi waved his hand in the air, and a light screen appeared. This light screen was very magical. It was like a movie being projected in the air. It was very clear and the people on the screen were very lifelike, as if they were about to come out. There were two different groups of people on the screen. One group had one person while the other had more than 10 people. Everyone's pupils shrank. They immediately recognized that it was Tian Songzi because there was a jade pendant on his waist with the words, Tian Songzi, carved on it. This is the demon race's illusion art. Those who knew their stuff immediately recognized this light screen. It was a technique of the demon race, but it didn't have any offensive power. It was a technique used to record images. This must have been recorded by the demon race when Tian Songzi was plotting with them. Tian Songzi didn't know about it. The demon race is really cunning. They actually used the illusion art. The devil clan's actions have a deep meaning. Once Tian Kanzi controls the distinct void sect, his status will be high and his identity will be illustrious. Then, the devil clan will be able to use the phantom technique to record everything, and use it to threaten Tian Kanzi. They will make the distinct void sect their puppet, and help them do things. I remember now. I once heard the seniors in the sect mention this. Back then, the righteous faction had tried to encircle and annihilate the devil race several times, but all of them returned in failure. Even the originally well-planned encirclement and annihilation that was sure to be a sure win came to nothing. It was as if someone had leaked information. However, there was no evidence and this matter was left unsettled. Could it be that someone really leaked the information to the demon race? And this person was Tian Songzi? Someone had an idea and questioned. I think it's very possible. He was already the sect master of Kingsman at that time. His status and position were very high. Naturally, no one would suspect him, and no one would dare to investigate him. This matter will naturally be left unsettled, and there will be no conclusion. Everyone's analysis was clear and logical. The truth was slowly coming to light. Taixuzi stared at the screen in a daze. He obviously knew that the illusion art could not be faked. This meant that Tian Songzi was indeed in cahoots with the demon race. As for whether that person was Tian Songzi or not, Taixuzi was 100% sure. Because Kingsman had clear portraits of the previous sect masters. Taixuzi had seen them countless times. How could he forget or be mistaken? The screen disappeared. Everyone was filled with righteous indignation. They were all members of the Orthodox faction, and couldn't help but feel humiliated. After Tian Chanzi finished speaking, he actually let out a sigh of relief. It was as if he had completed a part of Miao Yin's last wish. He felt a bit more at ease. Tang Zheng stared at Taixuzi with a burning gaze and asked, "You still don't believe me?" Tian Songzi frowned and had nothing to say. Tang Zheng looked around and stared at all the Orthodox faction members. His voice was like a bell as he said, "Now everyone knows who the real traitor is?" Tian Songzi. Tian Songzi. Roars of anger could topple mountains and overturn seas. Many people were filled with righteousness. How could they tolerate this kind of injustice? They all shouted with hatred for a common enemy. Tang Zheng calmly nodded and said, "Yes, the real traitor is Tian Songzi. And Tian Chanzi is the most innocent. He has endured thousands of years of infamy. From today onwards, this infamy will end here. No one can think of splashing dirty water on Tian Chanzi. I also won't allow anyone to splash dirty water on Tian Chanzi." This declaration was simple and crude, but it was filled with sincerity. No one dared to question it. Taixuzi lowered his head. He could not say a single word of rebuttal. The other members of Kingsman felt even more humiliated. Not only did they sympathize with Tian Chanzi's situation, but they were also bitterly disappointed and distressed for their sect to have such a scandal. Chapter 1688. The time had come. Wild Dog and the others shouted, "Tian Chanzi was slandered. He is not a traitor. Tian Songzi is the traitor. Yes, Tian Chanzi is the true righteous one. He is our comrade." The voices rose and fell, and no one doubted the Heaven Monk anymore. The people from the Clear Void sect looked at the Heaven Monk with eyes full of sympathy and shame, ashamed of the wrong views that they had always insisted on. However, the Kingsaman people did not dare to express their opinions directly. They looked at Taiksuzi, the sect master. He was the one who had to make the decision. Taiksuzi's expression kept changing. It was as if a mountain was on his shoulders. He was in a dilemma. If he cleared Tian Chanzi's name, he would have to convict Tian Songzi, the sect master from 1,000 years ago. As a junior, it was disgraceful. However, if he did not do so, Kingsaman's reputation would be ruined in front of everyone. He would not be able to establish himself in the righteous world. Kingsaman would be isolated. In the end, it was not hard to imagine what would happen to Kingsaman. Kingsaman was destroyed by him. He would have to bear the blame. Yes. Taiksuzi took a deep breath. His eyes gradually became firm. He had made up his mind. He walked towards Heaven Monk step by step. Everyone held their breaths, knowing that this matter was about to be settled. Among them, the most nervous person was Tian Chanzi. This was related to his long-cherished wish and Sweet Sound's last wish. He could not predict the outcome. Huff! His breathing quickened. Taiksuzi stood in front of Tian Chanzi. He looked serious and said firmly, "Taiksuzi of Kingsaman greets Senior Tian Chanzi." Taiksuzi got down on one knee and prostrated himself in front of Tian Chanzi. Everyone was silent, but everyone understood what this meant. Taiksuzi admitted that Tian Chanzi was wrongly accused and nailed Tian Chanzi onto the pillar of shame. It was his decision as the sect master, as well as the decision of all the people in Kingsaman. Tian Chanzi's expression became extremely emotional. His whole body trembled, and tears glistened in his eyes. After knowing Heaven Monk for so long, Tang Zheng had never seen him like this before. His heart was filled with sorrow, and his heart was also moved. Taiksuzi stood up and said respectfully, "Kingsaman welcomes Tian Chanzi back to Kingsaman." When the other members of the Clear Void sect heard this, they all knelt down on one knee and kowtowed. In unison, they said respectfully, "We respectfully invite Senior Heaven Monk to return to the Clear Void sect." Their voices were loud and resonated above everyone's heads. It shook their hearts. Tears flowed out of his eyes, and 2 lines of tears hung on Heaven Monk's cheeks. This was the goal that he had always dreamed of, and now it had finally been realized. His lips trembled, and he said intermittently, "Miaoyin, did you hear that? I've finally returned to my sect." Everyone was moved by his emotions. Tian Chanzi started sobbing softly and squatted on the ground. He did not have any image at all, but his image in everyone's hearts was extremely high, even higher than a mountain. Taiksuzi said again, "The position of the sect master of Kingsaman should have belonged to Senior Tian Chanzi. From today onwards, you are the sect master of Kingsaman." What? Taiksuzi's words shocked everyone again. They looked at Taiksuzi in disbelief. He was willing to hand over the position of the sect master to someone else. Few people could compare to him. Tian Chanzi looked up and shook his head. He ignored the tears on his face and said, "No. How can this be? The position of the sect master belongs to you. How can I be the sect master?" Taishu Zi's tone was firm as he said sincerely, "Back then, Senior should have inherited the position of sect master, but it was snatched away by Tian Chanzi's scheming, causing the distinct Void sect's reputation to be tarnished. Now that you have taken over the position of the sect master, Kingsaman is finally back on the right path. Please don't refuse." Tian Chanzi was speechless. He did not know how to refute. His biggest wish was to return to Kingsaman. He did not covet the position of the sect master. To him, power was nothing more than a passing cloud. Taiksuzi did not give him a chance to refuse. He knelt down again and said, "Taiksuzi of Kingsaman greets the sect master." "Greetings, sect master." The other Kingsaman people also knelt down again. Tian Chanzi looked at the group of disciples who knelt down. He was filled with emotions and did not know what to do. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth revealed a gratified smile, and advised, "Heaven Monk, this is what everyone wants. Besides, as Taiksuzi said, you are the sect master to put an end to Kingsaman's past and create a future for Kingsaman. Please don't refuse." Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Zheng in a daze. Did he really have the right to be the sect master? After all, he had been away from Kingsaman for so long. However, Tang Zheng's encouraging look gave him great courage and motivation. Phew. He heavily exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and recovered his solemn expression. Looking at everyone in the distinct void sect, he said in a deep voice, "Many thanks for everyone's love. I will definitely not disappoint everyone's kind intentions. From now on, our distinct void sect will be united as one, and we will once again regain our former glory and glory." The clear void sect all raised their heads, their eyes filled with fervor. The Heaven Monk had said what they had always wished for. Kingsaman used to be one of the most prestigious sects in Kingsaman. However, it had fallen so far. Everyone in Kingsaman was disappointed and did not want to return to the glory of the past. However, their talents had withered. Even Taixuzi, the sect master, was not as good as the other sections. How could they rise among the orthodox sects? However, things were different now. With Tian Chanzi, Kingsaman would truly rise. Besides, Tian Chanzi and Tangzheng were very close. Kingsaman had all the advantages. How could they not rise? Kingsaman people stood up. They straightened their backs and stuck out their chests. Their spirits seemed to have changed. The others were filled with emotions. Wild Dog looked from Tian Chanzi to Tangzheng. He said loudly, "The truth is out. Tian Chanzi is not a traitor. Therefore, Tangzheng is the rightful sect master. Does anyone have any objections?" No one in Kingsaman has any objections. We support the new alliance master. Taixuzi was the first to express his stance. The other Kingsaman people followed suit. The distinct void sect's rise was imminent, and all of this was thanks to Tangzheng. Even though the distinct void sect's reputation had been affected to a certain extent, but in the future, when they rise, this little bit of influence would not be worth mentioning. If Tian Chanzi did not return, Taixuzi could not guarantee how long Kingsaman would last. Perhaps they would disappear from the world in the near future. Comparing the two, the current situation was the best outcome. The others did not have any objections. They all expressed their agreement. Tian Chanzi returned the favor. He stepped forward and bowed to Tangzheng respectfully. He shouted loudly, "Greetings, Alliance Master." "Greetings, Alliance Master." The others were either convinced from the bottom of their hearts or forced by the situation. All of them bowed down to Tangzheng and shouted loudly, their voices toppling the mountains and overturning the seas, shaking everyone's hearts. For the latest novel to read, please visit Chapter 1689. All of the righteous faction members kowtowed to Tangzheng. Not only that, Xiaobai also kowtowed. His kowtow naturally led the elder ancestor and the others to kowtow as well. Yi Dingdang giggled and also kowtowed mischievously. When the others saw this, how could they not kowtow? Thus, in this huge space in the boorish desolation, other than Tangzheng who was standing alone, everyone else kowtowed to Tangzheng. Their movements were neat and uniform, and their momentum was like a rainbow. Tangzheng was not an indecisive person. He needed the strength of the righteous faction. Since the righteous faction had pledged their allegiance, whether it was out of sincerity or because of the situation, he did not care. Naturally, there was no reason for him to refuse. He swept his gaze around in a dignified manner and said lightly, "It would be impolite to refuse. Then I will take up the position of alliance leader. Everyone rise." Their goal was achieved. Everyone stood up and looked at Tangzheng with complicated gazes. There was no lack of excitement and suspicion. Tangzheng did not mind. He was confident that in time he could make these people pledge their allegiance to him wholeheartedly. Double happiness came at once. Tian Chanzi took over as sect leader, and Tangzheng became alliance leader. The righteous faction seemed to have gained a backbone. The boorish desolation underground was a scene of joy and harmony. There was no sign of the hostility and danger from before. A new broom sweeps clean. Everyone was paying attention to Tangzheng, waiting for him to come up with a new countermeasure to resist Hao Tianwang's attack. Tangzheng had already thought of a countermeasure. He was confident, and throughout the heavenly chess. Most people did not understand the power of the heavenly chess. They could not help but be puzzled. They did not know what was so special about the heavenly chess that Tangzheng would give it so much hope. Tangzheng was not in a hurry to explain. There was no proof for this kind of thing. Only when everyone witnessed it with their own eyes would they be able to understand its profoundness and essence. No one disobeyed Tang Zheng's orders. They all followed his instructions and arranged the heavenly chess. Tang Zheng knew the heavenly chess like the back of his hand. He was not inferior to the creator of the heavenly chess, Ji Wuxiang. Furthermore, Tang Zheng's knowledge far surpassed Ji Wuxiang's. Therefore, Tang Zheng was the only one who knew that the new heavenly chess was slightly different from the original heavenly chess. The celestial chess covered a huge area. The celestial chess was set up in the wildlands and the surrounding areas. Tang Zheng knew this area like the back of his hand, even without the need for soldiers to investigate. Nothing could escape his notice. After all, the wildlands was a wasteland where not even a blade of grass grew. It was not a good idea for them to hide here for too long. The celestial chess could protect the boorish land and prevent them from being completely annihilated. However, they still had to think of other ways to find a breakthrough. Everyone knew that taking back Sky Beyond Sky was going to be a long battle, so they had to be prepared for a long battle. Before the army moved, the provisions would move first. This was a well-known fact. Although a cultivator's dependence on food had decreased a lot, a cultivator still needed to eat in the end. It was just a matter of time. Therefore, the food problem needed to be solved urgently. Many of the righteous faction's treasures had been destroyed by Tang Zheng. Moreover, the entire righteous faction's treasures were very outdated. Not to mention holy artifacts, there were not even many heaven-grade treasures. Therefore, collecting materials and refining treasures was the most important thing. However, the 9 revolving pill furnace was still in the hands of the king of medicine. They could only collect materials for the time being. As a native of Sky Beyond Sky, the elder ancestor understood Sky Beyond Sky the most. He was also not unfamiliar with the wildlands. After hearing Tang Zheng's words, he could not help but fall into deep thought. The others began to discuss and brainstorm. They all wanted to contribute a little bit of their strength. Collecting these things in the wildlands is like trying to get fish from a tree. It's impossible. The elder ancestor said decisively. This was like a bucket of cold water being poured over their heads. Everyone quivered and looked at the elder ancestor, their eyes asking why. The wildlands is a wasteland. How can there be food and raw materials for refining treasures? The elder ancestor explained. Tang Zheng thought. If a wasteland can be turned into an oasis like a desert, then wouldn't the wildlands be turned into fertile land? However, this would require the Tree of Life. When he thought of the Tree of Life, Tang Zheng thought of the fire qilin. This was a divine beast. If he could tame the fire qilin, it would be a great help. As long as he could find the Tree of Life, it would not be difficult to find the fire qilin. Sky Beyond Sky was a large world. Naturally, there would be a Tree of Life. Tang Zheng could not hold back his curiosity and hurriedly asked, "Where is the Tree of Life in Sky Beyond Sky?" The Tree of Life was very important. If the Tree of Life could be moved to the wildlands, then wouldn't the wildlands be turned into an oasis? The problem of ingredients would be easily solved. Everyone looked at the elder ancestor, hoping to hear the whereabouts of the Tree of Life from him. Unexpectedly, the elder ancestor's eyes were tightly knit together. He said with a frown, "What is the Tree of Life? I've never seen it before. Naturally, I don't know where it is." Tang Zheng stared at the elder ancestor with a burning gaze. Seeing that he was not joking, he could not help but be stunned for a moment. He said nervously, "The Tree of Life is the foundation of the great wide world. The Tree of Life can change the weather and spiritual qi, turning a desert into an oasis. You've lived in Sky Beyond Sky for so many years. How could you have never heard of the Tree of Life?" The elder ancestor nodded with certainty. "I've indeed never heard of it." The others can testify that no one in Sky Beyond Sky has ever heard of the Tree of Life. Tang Zheng turned to stare at Xiaobai and asked, "Xiaobai, do you not have the Tree of Life in your memories of Sky Beyond Sky?" Xiaobai was not in a hurry to answer. Instead, he closed his eyes and searched for the information passed down by the imperial family. There was too much information and too mixed. He did not have time to completely sort it out. Therefore, he was not sure if there was any information about the Tree of Life in these memories. He could only sharpen his knife and search on the spot. Tang Zheng knew a little about it, so he did not disturb him and waited quietly for him. After a long time, Xiaobai suddenly opened his eyes. The look in his eyes was very strange. There was a mixture of joy and doubt. "How is it?" Tang Zheng hurriedly asked. The others also looked at Xiaobai curiously. Xiaobai said in a deep voice, "I'm afraid that you won't believe me even if I tell you. But there's indeed no tree of life in sky beyond sky." "What?" Tang Zheng's expression changed and he exclaimed, "The tree of life is the foundation of the great wide world. How can sky beyond sky not have it?" The others also nodded. Clearly, they could not understand this question. Xiaobai's mouth curled into an unfathomable smile. The great wide world doesn't have to have a tree of life. The tree of life is only unique to some great wide worlds. The tree of life is just a representation, and it will have different representations in different worlds. Tang Zheng had an idea and asked, "Are you saying that the foundation of sky beyond sky is something else, which is equivalent to the tree of life in the human world?" Xiaobai nodded. Tang Zheng opened his mouth in shock. The others were also dumbfounded. They did not expect this truth. Tang Zheng recovered from his shock. He collected his thoughts and asked curiously, "What's the foundation of sky beyond sky?" Xiaobai opened his mouth and softly spat out 2 words. When everyone heard this, their expressions changed greatly. Their expressions were very interesting. They never dreamed that the foundation of sky beyond sky was this. The great wide world was really full of strange things. For the latest novel updates, please visit the website. Chapter 1690. Kuanpeng. Those were the 2 words that Xiaobai said. Although his voice was not loud, it was so loud that everyone was stunned. Not only Tang Zheng and the rest, but most of the people from the righteous path had seen the Kuanpeng before. They were shocked when they heard that the Kuanpeng was the foundation of the Outland, which was equivalent to the Tree of Life. Tang Zheng did not expect the Kuanpeng to have such an identity. After a while he regained his senses and asked, "Why is the Kuanpeng the foundation of the Outland?" Xiaobai shrugged and said, "This is what the imperial family's memory told me. I don't know the reason." Tang Zheng revealed a look of disappointment. The old ancestor came back to his senses and said thoughtfully, "Back then the late emperor and empress favored the Kuanpeng a lot. Although the Kuanpeng didn't take any position, its status was extraordinary. Many people didn't understand the reason. Now, it seems that the late emperor knew that the Kuanpeng was the foundation of the Outland, so he could not be neglected." Red Moon was enlightened and said, "I was still angry that the Kuanpeng betrayed the late emperor and followed Hao Tianwang. Now it seems that the Kuanpeng did not take a stand." The elder ancestor nodded in agreement. "That makes sense." Tang Zheng remembered the reason why the Outland invaded the human world. They moved the cultivators to the Outland to repair the foundation of the Outland. In order to seize the Outland, Hao Tianwang damaged the foundation of the Outland during the war with the imperial family. The Outland was in danger, and was downgraded from a macroscopic world to a microcosm. Perhaps the Kuanpeng was injured during the war, so the foundation of the Outland was damaged. Hao Tianwang had no choice but to repair it. In other words, Hao Tianwang did not know that the Kuanpeng was the foundation of the Outland, but he must have found out later. But after careful consideration of this matter, he couldn't help but be shocked. The Kuanpeng had the divine power of giving someone a taste of their own medicine. But it was injured during the war. It showed how tragic and earth-shattering the war was. This also meant that the Kuanpeng's divine ability was not omnipotent. As long as one's strength reached a certain level, one could also break this divine ability. Since Kuanpeng is the foundation of sky beyond sky, then naturally it can't always fall into the hands of Hao Tianwang. We must find a way to take it back. Tang Zheng said firmly. The others nodded as well. In the past, they did not know the importance of the Kuanpeng, so they did not pay attention to it. But things were different now. Not to mention whether or not the Kuanpeng could turn the wasteland into an oasis. Just the fact that it was the foundation of the Outland meant that it had to be in his hands. Xiaobai said worriedly, "The Kuanpeng doesn't listen to our orders. How can we take it back?" Tang Zheng said with a smile, "Kuanpeng doesn't listen to our orders, but it doesn't necessarily listen to Hao Tianwang's orders. What do you mean? Didn't the Kuan-Peng carry Hao Tianwang's army to attack the Suicide Valley? If the Kuan-Peng really listened to Hao Tianwang's orders, then Hao Tianwang wouldn't have escaped with his tail between his legs. Because if the Kuan-Peng could reflect attacks, then Hao Tianwang would be in an invincible position. Why would he need to be afraid of our counterattack? In the past, Tang Zheng would not have thought of this, but ever since he knew the true identity of the Kuan-Peng, this point had suddenly become clear. When the others heard this, their eyes lit up, as if they had never thought of this before. If not for Tang Zheng's reminder, they probably would not have thought of it so quickly. Xiao Bai's eyes lit up, and he clicked his tongue in wonder. That makes sense. I'm afraid that Hao Tianwang cannot completely control the Kuan-Peng, which gives us an opportunity to take advantage of it. Tang Zheng nodded his head in relief. The others also revealed looks of joy, eager to give it a try, and said, "Then what are we waiting for? Right, let's hurry up and snatch the Kuan-Peng back. I have a feeling that once we snatch the Kuan-Peng back, our chances of victory will be much higher." Everyone's gazes landed on Tang Zheng, waiting for his decision. Tang Zheng muttered to himself, "Indeed, so we have to make a trip to the Imperial City." The Kuan-Peng was in the Imperial City, which was Hao Tianwang's base camp. It was like going deep into the tiger's den. Everyone's expressions also became serious. This was an extremely dangerous mission. If they were not careful, they could lose their lives. Everyone realized this, but no one retreated. Instead, they fought to be the first to do so. Yi Dingdang anxiously declared, "I'm going to the Imperial City. I've never been to the Imperial City before. Only by going once will this trip not be in vain." Her tone was relaxed, as if she did not care about the danger at all. Wu and Lu Qingmei were not willing to fall behind, and rushed to say, "I'll go too." Other than a few people from the righteous faction, the others quickly followed suit, unwilling to fall behind. Among the righteous faction's people, there were many sect leaders from the great sects. They were not familiar with Tang Zheng and the others, but when they saw how fearless they were, they could not help but turn pale. The Imperial City and Hao Tianwang are so terrifying, but this group of people are not afraid at all. They could not understand this kind of boldness and courage. These past few years, they had been hiding and keeping a respectful distance, afraid that Hao Tianwang would attack them. This group of people actually took the initiative to deliver themselves to them. Tang Zheng indifferently looked at the righteous faction, seeing through their thoughts, but he did not care and said, "If so many people go, wouldn't that be too eye-catching? We cannot avoid a big battle this time. We are not going to go sightseeing." Pausing for a moment, his gaze fell on Yi Dingdang as he solemnly said, "Wasn't the place we transmigrated to above the Imperial City? You've already seen the Imperial City. Why do you need to make another trip?" Yi Dingdang was not convinced. "But that was just a glance from afar. We did not go in. How could we appreciate its elegance?" "The Imperial City is not elegant." Tang Zheng waved his hand, completely cutting off Yi Dingdang's thoughts, and said, "Tian Chanzi, you will stay in the Boorish lands. Xiao Bai, the four symbols, Azura, and I will go to the Imperial City. The others will stay in the Boorish lands. This is our base, this is our foundation, we cannot give it up." Tian Chanzi did not object. He had just returned to Kingsman, and was also the new sect leader. He had to sort out the Kingsman from top to bottom and formulate a plan for future development, so he could not leave. The elder ancestor, Chiyaya, and the witch tribe obviously did not want to stay in the Boorish lands. They all wanted to charge and break through the enemy lines. If it was any other situation, Tang Zheng naturally would not go against their wishes, but this time it was really too dangerous. He did not have the confidence. How could he bear to let his subordinates take the risk? Although some people were unwilling, they could not refute Tang Zheng, and could only accept all the arrangements. When the news that they were going to enter the tiger's den spread, it caused quite a stir in the righteous faction. Everyone was worried, and a new problem arose spontaneously. Tang Zheng was carefully preparing to go to the Imperial City, but Tian Chanzi and the other sect leaders came looking for him. Tang Zheng looked at the group of sect leaders in astonishment. "Sect leaders, why are you looking for me?" At this juncture, this group of people definitely came together for an important matter, which made them very puzzled. What exactly was it that made them gather so many people? To read the latest novel, please visit Chapter 1691. The few sect leaders looked at each other in dismay, their faces filled with hesitation, as though they did not dare to say it directly. After a long while they recommended Heaven Monk and said, "Sect leader Heaven Monk, why don't you say it?" Tang Zheng looked at Tian Chanzi curiously. Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes speechlessly and said bluntly, "Leaders, since you can freely travel between the human world and the heavens beyond, when can you return to the human world?" Tang Zheng's heart trembled. He had actually overlooked such a crucial question. For the righteous path, they did not care about taking back the heavens beyond. Since there was hope of returning to the human world, they naturally cared more about this point. Pairs of burning eyes looked at Tang Zheng, waiting for his answer. Tang Zheng muttered, "Leaders, although we came from the human world, if we want to return to the human world, it is not an easy task." "Why?" The leaders' faces changed slightly, and someone asked. Tang Zheng already had a countermeasure, and said, "Because there are too many people in the righteous path. With my skills, there is no way to bring so many people back." Although the space of Sumeru heavens was huge, it was still another space. When passing through the space door, Sumeru heavens and the space door would have some kind of impact. This required Tang Zheng to use his skills to resolve this impact. This was what Tang Zheng learned the last time he passed through the space door. In the past, he thought that using Sumeru heavens to bring many people through the space door would be easy. But in the end, he found that he was wrong. The more people there were in Sumeru heavens, the more difficult it would be for him to pass through the space door. There were so many people in the righteous path. How could he bring all of them back to the human world? If he brought them back in batches, it would cause unfairness and dissatisfaction. So he might as well let them all stay in the heavens beyond. The situation in the human world was already different from hundreds of years ago. This group of righteous path faced the problem of life and death in the heavens beyond. But if they returned to the human world, they would be absolute powerhouses. He could not imagine what kind of problems the human world would face at that time. The key point was that he did not have the energy to deal with this problem, so he could only delay it for now. In addition, if he wanted to take back the heavens beyond heaven, he would need the help of this group of righteous path. In this process, he could clearly see who was truly trustworthy. Regardless of whether it was out of selfishness or righteousness, Tang Zheng could not agree to the righteous path so quickly. He pondered for a while and said awkwardly, "Passing through the space gate is not an easy task. I don't have the ability to bring everyone back to the human world for the time being." As soon as he said that, the sect leaders' expressions changed. One of them said, "The outer sky is so dangerous. How can we not leave as soon as possible?" In the past, they had no hope of leaving. Now that they had a glimmer of hope, how could they be willing to stay in heavens beyond? Tang Zheng looked at everyone with a scorching gaze. "I'm not afraid even if I stay in the realm beyond heaven with all of you, so what do you have to be afraid of? Moreover, there is a celestial chest set up in the wildlands. As long as you don't leave the wildlands, you will be safe." All the sect leaders cursed in their hearts. What's so great about heavenly chests? They couldn't tell at all. As for your strength, of course they weren't worried. "We weren't as powerful as you." However, they could only swallow these words in their hearts. They didn't dare to say it out loud. They said resentfully, "We've been away from the human world for too long. Everyone misses home too much." Tang Zheng laughed coldly. This excuse was too old-fashioned. There was nothing new about it. It was just fooling a 3-year-old child. Tian Chanzi also understood the thoughts of these sect leaders. He was quite angry. They had just joined Tang Zheng's side, and they were already making demands. Were they really that afraid of death? "I, Tian Chanzi, have died once. I'm not afraid of death." Tian Chanzi stepped forward bravely and said passionately, "At least there is one righteous person who hasn't left heavens beyond heaven. Then I will not leave heavens beyond heaven for one day. Now all the sect leaders should be satisfied, right?" All the sect leaders looked at Tian Chanzi in astonishment. They didn't expect him to stand up so boldly. These bold words made them flabbergasted. Tian Chanzi's eyes were firm. He didn't allow anyone to question him. You're exaggerating. Tian Chanzi is a noble sect leader. How can he be the last to leave heavens beyond heaven? Someone hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Tian Chanzi didn't appreciate it at all. He stubbornly said, I've already said my piece. Everyone just wait and see. Tang Zheng looked at Tian Chanzi gratefully. This action resolved everything. Everyone knew that Tian Chanzi and Tang Zheng had a close relationship. He was willing to be the last to leave heavens beyond heaven. How could the others be dissatisfied? Even if there were complaints, they were all blocked. All the sect leaders looked at each other and secretly shook their heads. They knew that there was no reason to continue speaking. They all said goodbye to Tang Zheng and left resentfully. Tian Chanzi looked at their departing figures. His expression became complicated. He sighed and said, This group of short-sighted people. How can the righteous path become like this today? Tang Zheng wasn't surprised. The special environment of heavens beyond heaven had caused all of this. They did everything for survival, so naturally, they would become much more selfish. He said, Don't worry. Their hopes are on me, so they have to listen to my orders. I'm worried that when they return to the human world in the future, your identity as the alliance leader may not be able to command them. At that time, they will be in a state of disunity. It's hard to predict what will happen. Tian Chanzi shook his head and sighed. Tang Zheng wasn't worried. He smiled faintly and said, When they return to the human world, the martial artists in Dianan will be strong enough. Moreover, I will set up as many heaven's chess pieces as possible. If they want to do anything wrong, they can only lift a stone and smash it on their own feet. Tian Chanzi nodded secretly and said, Since you have a countermeasure, I won't say more. This episode didn't affect the established plan. The day of departure was coming. These few days, everyone was carefully preparing, conserving their energy, and adjusting their condition to the best. Even if there was a fierce battle, they were not afraid at all. At the edge of the barbarian land, several leaders of the righteous path, Yi Dingdang, the three girls, the great ancestor, and the witch tribe stood in front of Tang Zheng and the others. They were reluctant to part and waved goodbye. The three girls kept reminding Tang Zheng to be careful and return safely. Tang Zheng felt their intentions and was full of pride. He patted his chest to reassure them. The great ancestor and the others looked at Xiao Bai worriedly. Although Xiao Bai's cultivation was already at the 8th grade of the Mahayana realm, which was the highest among everyone, the great ancestor couldn't help but worry. After all, the imperial city was a tiger's den. It was the enemy's base camp. It was hard to predict what kind of changes and dangers would happen. The red lunar beast also joined the great ancestor's team. They tried their best to persuade Xiao Bai to change his mind and bring them along to take care of him. Xiao Bai turned his head and glanced at Tang Zheng. He didn't change his mind at all. The great ancestor and the red lunar beast's last efforts were in vain. All right, then let's go. Everyone, wait for our triumphant return with the Kuanpeng. Tang Zheng waved his hand and said proudly. Chapter 1692. In the sky above the imperial city, a white cloud floated over and blended in with the other clouds. The night was like water, and the summer salt cloud's movements were inconspicuous. Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai felt the biting cold night wind and looked into the distance, sizing up the imperial city. Under the curtain of night, the imperial city lit up with lights, like the stars in the sky. It was no longer as noisy as it was during the day. In an instant, it regained its peace, as if someone had pressed the mute button. They deliberately waited until the night to act, because sneaking into the imperial city at night was the least likely way to be discovered. Master, where do you think Hao Tianwang hid the Kuanpeng's huge body? Xiao Bai was puzzled and asked curiously. The last time they sneaked into the imperial city, they did not see the Kuanpeng, so they were very curious about its hiding place. How did your imperial family place the Kuanpeng? Tang Zheng asked casually. In the memory I inherited, there is no special information about the Kuanpeng. It is completely free. It can go anywhere it wants. Tang Zheng smiled and said, Hao Tianwang would not raise the Kuanpeng like this. Since he knows the importance of the Kuanpeng, he would naturally hold it firmly in his hands. The imperial city is so big, then where are we going to find the Kuanpeng? Xiaobai asked worriedly. Tang Zheng's gaze was deep. There were only 4 people in this trip. Other than him and Xiaobai, the 4 symbols and Azura were temporarily staying in Sumeru world. They were alone and could not make any mistakes. Tang Zheng's gaze fell on the patrolling guards in the imperial city and said thoughtfully, "Let's capture someone and ask." Xiaobai immediately understood Tang Zheng's thoughts and volunteered. "I'll do it." The 2 of them pressed down on the cloud and quietly landed. During the day, the imperial city was heavily guarded, hundreds of times more than when they sneaked in. Obviously, after the Battle of the Suicide Valley, Hao Tianwang was jittery, afraid that the enemy would sneak into the imperial city again. But how could such a huge city wall not have any loopholes? How could it be absolutely safe? Especially in front of this kind of Xiuzha who came and went, the city walls and city guards could become decorations. At this moment, Tang Zheng and Xiaobai had sneaked into the imperial city without anyone noticing. However, when they were at the imperial city gate, the 2 of them saw several corpses that were hung high up on the city gate for public display. The 2 of them had witnessed the entire process during the day. The city guards had caught a few suspicious people and declared them to be spies. Then they were immediately hung on the city gates and tortured to death. The 2 of them were really shocked by this scene. They didn't expect Hao Tianwang to be so crazy as to use this kind of torture in front of their own home, indiscriminately taking people's lives. As for spies and enemies, that was nonsense. Tang Zheng had never sent anyone to the imperial city, so how could there be any spies? This was completely because Hao Tianwang had a guilty conscience and became a frightened bird, which was why he committed such a bloody crime. At that time, Xiaobai was gnashing his teeth in hatred. These people were his people, but they were ruled by Hao Tianwang's tyranny. He understood the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders even more. Not only did he want to take back the glory and honor that belonged to the imperial family, he also wanted to save his own people from the fire and water. After the 2 of them sneaked into the imperial city, Xiaobai still couldn't help but look at the city gate and said in a low voice, "Master, I will definitely make Hao Tianwang pay the price. If you want to destroy them, you have to make them crazy first. This is Hao Tianwang's last carnival. The more he does this, the more unpopular he will be. Water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize a boat. If he loses the hearts of the people, how far can he go?" Tang Zheng sneered and said disdainfully. Xiaobai was confused and didn't completely understand Tang Zheng's meaning. Tang Zheng looked at him and said earnestly, "In the future, when you become the king of sky beyond sky, you must treat your own people well." Xiaobai patted his chest and said with a matter-of-fact expression, "I am not a thug like Hao Tianwang. Naturally, I will treat my own people well." After saying this, Xiaobai's ears trembled. He raised a finger and said in a low voice, "Master, the city guards are coming." The imperial city was heavily guarded, and the city guards had increased the intensity of their patrols. Therefore, they encountered the city guards as soon as they entered. Xiaobai said eagerly, "Master, wait here. I will catch them for questioning." Xiaobai didn't give Tang Zheng a chance to object. In a flash, he disappeared into the night. There wasn't any big movement. After a while, Xiaobai came back with an enemy. "Master, this is their leader, a city guard. He must know a lot of information." Xiaobai clapped his hands and said. The city guard looked at Tang Zheng in panic. He wanted to shout loudly, but he couldn't say a word. It was as if his throat was blocked by something. "Don't waste your energy." Xiaobai patted the city guard's shoulder. "If you move again, you will be like your subordinates and die immediately." The city guard heard this and became obedient. He looked at the 2 people in horror. His heart was shocked. These 2 people were really bold. The imperial city was heavily guarded, but they still dared to sneak in. "I ask you, where is the Kuanpeng?" Time was tight, so Tang Zheng asked directly. The city guard thought that the other side was going to ask about something, but it was actually about the Kuanpeng. He couldn't help but open his eyes wide, not understanding what was going on. Xiaobai patted his body and removed the restriction spell. He urged, "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and answer." Don't play any tricks. You know how powerful I am. The city guard trembled and said with a bitter face, I also don't know. Xiao Bai's face hardened and said, You dare to play tricks? You don't want to say it? Then you will have a taste of it. Wait a minute. Xiao Bai was about to make a move when Tang Zheng hurriedly stopped him. I ask you, the Kuanpeng is so big. It is not inferior to the imperial city. Once it comes back, how can it disappear from under your eyes? How can you not know where it went? The Kuanpeng can be big or small. Once it returns to the imperial city, it will become small. How can people like us know where it went? The city guard said with a bitter face. The Kuanpeng can be big or small. Tang Zheng frowned suspiciously. The 2 times he saw the Kuanpeng, he only saw its huge body. He didn't think that it could become small. Tang Zheng turned his head to look at Xiao Bai and asked, Is it like this in your memory? Xiao Bai shook his head firmly. Of course not. In my memory, the Kuanpeng is very big. How can it become small? Humph, master. One look and you can tell that he is talking nonsense. Why don't you just use the soul-searching technique? He can't hide any secrets. Xiao Bai's suggestion made Tang Zheng's head move. At this crucial moment, he couldn't make any mistakes. It seemed that he could only use the soul-searching technique. You can only blame yourself for listening to Hao Tianwang. Also, you usually do too many evil things. Tang Zheng muttered in his heart. His big hand grabbed the city guard envoy's head, and a message was transmitted to his mind. Master, how is it? Seeing him let go of his hand, Xiao Bai impatiently asked. He is not lying. Tang Zheng's face turned cold as he suspiciously said, My new book Immortal Cultivation Master on Campus has been released. It is even more interesting. Please support it. If you can't find the new book, please follow the official WeChat account, Tang Xiao. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1693. Xiao Bai looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief and asked, He's not lying? How is that possible? In Xiao Bai's memory, the Kuanpeng could not freely change its size, so it was hard to accept this reality. Tang Zheng thought about it and said, Maybe something happened later on that caused the Kuanpeng to change. Is there really such a possibility? Xiao Bai was skeptical. Tang Zheng nodded with certainty. The Kuanpeng is the foundation of the outer sky. Like the tree of life, it has many unpredictable characteristics, so we can't rule out this possibility. Xiao Bai pouted resentfully and said, All right. If the Kuanpeng becomes smaller, the target will be smaller. It can be anywhere, so how are we going to find it? Tang Zheng looked up at the city in the sky. Last time, they could reach the city in the sky from the imperial graveyard. But this time, they might not be able to do the same. Hao Tianwang would definitely investigate the previous invasion thoroughly, but it was unknown whether he would find the transportation formation, so it was better to be careful. After listening to Tang Zheng's analysis, Xiao Bai felt that it was very reasonable. But now, how to find the Kuanpeng was the most important thing. Tang Zheng stared at the city in the sky in the distance. The imperial city was polarized and had a strict hierarchy. The people who lived in the city in the sky were the real privileged class of the outer sky. The lives of the ordinary people were not happy. They were completely oppressed, but the power of the privileged class was too strong, so the ordinary people could not resist at all. Resistance meant death. Just like those corpses that were hung on the city gate for public display, there was no conclusive evidence at all, so the city guards could kill them if they wanted to. This was a world of difference from when the imperial family ruled the outer sky. At that time, the people lived and worked. How could it be so miserable? Xiao Bai also looked at the city in the sky and said, Master, if we can't find the Kuanpeng, why don't we take the initiative to attack and lure the snake out of its hole? Tang Zheng looked at Xiao Bai approvingly and said, Smart. The 2 of them had the same thought. They couldn't keep wasting time like this. After all, there were only the 2 of them. They were a small target and had high mobility. If they took the initiative to attack, they would have a way to escape. Unless Heavenly Monarch Hao personally intervened, it would not be easy to keep the 2 of them at the 7th and 8th grade of the Mahayana realm. The 2 hit it off immediately, and Tang Zheng said, Xiao Bai, do you know what's supporting Sky City? Why can it float in the air? Sky City is a floating city. As for why it can float, there's nothing special about it. It's just like the floating mountains we saw before. There are many floating mountains in outer heaven, and Sky City is just one of them. Tang Zheng was suddenly enlightened. He had thought that Sky City was supported by some kind of energy. Where is that light pillar? In addition to the function of the teleportation array, the pillar of light can also stabilize Sky City and prevent it from floating freely. The other mountains are floating indefinitely, unless they are fixed by some special magic. Sky City is a symbol of Hao Tianwang's power. His rule is so cruel that it has long been angry, but everyone just doesn't dare to say anything. If Sky City is destroyed or damaged, Hao Tianwang's authority will definitely be greatly challenged and weakened, which is a good thing for us. Tang Zheng thought. This time, when he came to the Imperial City, Tang Zheng made a special trip to investigate the specific situation of Outer Heaven. He found that the power and resources of Outer Heaven were all concentrated in the Imperial City and Sky City. The other places were relatively barren, and ordinary people lived in an abyss of suffering. If he had just taken a quick look, he wouldn't have discovered this. This discovery made him feel like he had found a treasure, and he had new thoughts and gains. It turned out that Hao Tianwang's rule over Outer Heaven was not iron. There had been an undercurrent surging for a long time, and he was just waiting for an opportunity to break through this window paper. Xiaobai was very much in favor of Tang Zheng's plan. Although Sky City was magnificent, in Xiaobai's opinion, there was a lot of corruption hidden in it, and it was better to destroy it. The two of them made up their minds and quietly sneaked toward Sky City. Along the way, there was a guard every 5 steps, and a sentry every 3 steps. The closer they got to Sky City, the tighter the security became, and there was a suffocating sense of oppression. You're so scared because you have a guilty conscience. Xiaobai lowered his voice and said with gritted teeth. Although the security was tight, the cultivation of these people was far inferior to the two of them. Therefore, they successfully sneaked to the bottom of Sky City, not far from the teleportation light pillar. This light pillar is protected by a formation, so it won't be so easy to destroy it. Xiaobai reminded. Formation? Hehe, I know a little about it. Tang Zheng was full of confidence. If it was said that his understanding of formations before was only at the beginner level, ever since he completely comprehended heavenly chess, he actually had a deeper understanding of formations by analogy. This understanding was not something that ordinary people could compare to. His current level of formations could be said to be at the Grandmaster level. It was just that he rarely used formations, so he did not show it. Heavenly chess and formations had many similarities. Heavenly chess was more complicated than formations. Heavenly chess was the principle that if one method was understood, all methods would be understood. Tang Zheng used his divine sense, and his divine sense wandered. Without anyone noticing, he wandered to the light pillar. His divine sense spread underground, and soon found some clues. This was indeed a large formation. The formation was connected to the entire Imperial City, and it was powered by the Imperial City's Qi channels. The formation was powerful, and its defensive power was extremely strong. It could firmly protect the light pillar. Based on this, Hao Tianwang could sit back and relax. He was not worried about the light pillar at all. This was a formation that had been reinforced by generations of imperial family. It should have been unbreakable. If they met an ordinary cultivator, they could forget about breaking the formation without anyone noticing. Unfortunately, they met Tang Zheng. He was proficient in heavenly chess, and already had a very deep foundation in formations. Furthermore, he had many unique insights and perspectives that others could not compare to. Tang Zheng carefully studied this large formation, and indeed spent a lot of energy. Finally, the corners of his mouth hooked up into a smile, and he thought to himself, I finally found the trick. Watch me break the formation. His divine sense cut into the key point of the formation, and a slight power quietly changed. The city guards guarding around the light pillar did not notice it at all. The formation was broken, and the defensive power of the formation was crumbling bit by bit. Tang Zheng withdrew his divine sense, and glanced at Xiaobai, who had an anxious look on his face, and said, It's a success. The formation has been broken. In just a while, This formation will completely disintegrate without anyone noticing. Then we can move. Xiao Bai's eyes were full of extraordinary splendor, and he was a little in disbelief. After all, that large formation was so powerful that he was completely helpless. But Tang Zheng had done it in 3 to 5 minutes. This was too heaven-defying. Xiao Bai took a deep breath, calming the stormy waves in his heart, and said, "Then let's start now. We'll destroy this light pillar and shake Sky City's foundation." Both of their eyes erupted with fanaticism, and they attacked at the same time. Chapter 1694. Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai gathered their energy, and the hidden mystic sword and the bloodthirsty scepter flew out together. The two rays of light flew towards the light pillar in front of everyone's eyes. Yet these two attacks were not concealed at all. Even if they were so powerful, they could not be concealed. The city guards were shocked. They did not expect that the core area of the imperial city would be attacked. They hurriedly shouted and tried to stop the two attacks. However, these two attacks were so powerful that they were simply not something they could intercept. Thus, the first city guard to stop them turned into a wisp of green smoke and died on the spot. The others were stunned. They did not expect this wave of attack to be so powerful. Boom! Boom! The two loud sounds shook the sky and the earth. The light pillar trembled violently. All the city guards swayed and could not stand steadily. However, this was far less than the shock in their hearts. They had never seen anyone attack the light pillar. Because word of mouth, everyone knew that the light pillar was unimaginably powerful. Moreover, there was a defensive array around the light pillar. Why did the defensive array not activate this time and let the light pillar withstand this wave of attack? They could not figure it out. They were completely stunned by this scene. Whoosh! The hidden mystic sword and the bloodthirsty scepter flew back to their respective owners. Before the city guards could react, they had already disappeared from their sight. There was no trace of them at all. "Hurry up and catch the enemy." A city guard finally reacted and screamed hysterically. The other city guards woke up from their daze and prepared to search for the enemy. However, before they could do anything, someone pointed at the light pillar and shouted in shock, "Look!" The city guards subconsciously stopped and stared at the light pillar. A crack appeared on the light pillar and quickly spread. After a while, there were many cracks on the light pillar. They were densely packed and looked like they were going to spread to the entire light pillar. Everyone was shocked and did not know what to do. They had never encountered such a situation before. Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai hid in the dark and saw this scene. They looked at each other and smiled. They knew that they had achieved their goal. The light pillar was destroyed, and the city in the sky would be on the verge of collapse. The first step of luring the snake out of its hole is complete. Once the chaos starts, we'll be able to fish in troubled waters. Back in the city in the sky, night had fallen and the imperial city was silent. However, the city in the sky was brightly lit with music, forming a sharp contrast with the imperial city below. Countless people were enjoying themselves. That was the normal state of the Sky Castle. Even though Hao Tianwang had issued an order to guard against the enemy, the Sky Castle was still the same. With two loud booms, Sky City shook violently. All the people who were still enjoying themselves screamed in horror. The shaking did not last for too long. When it finally calmed down, everyone was shocked and furious. The city in the sky had always been calm and tranquil. There was not even a trace of shaking. So how could it be like the mountains were shaking and the earth was quaking? Something must have happened. Many people ran out of their houses and looked at each other in confusion. None of them knew what was going on. In the most magnificent palace in the center of the city in the sky, Hao Tianwang and King Wuling were talking when they suddenly shook violently, shocking both father and son. The older, the wiser. Heavenly King Hao immediately reacted and shouted, "The enemy is here." Whoosh! He had already turned into a gust of wind and flew out of the palace. King Wuling's reaction was not slow either, and he quickly chased after him. Soaring into the air, the two of them had a panoramic view of the city in the sky. Creak! Creak! A burst of ear-piercing and strange sounds suddenly rang out. Hao Tianwang's ears twitched and he said sternly, "Damn it, I didn't go to find them but they came to die first." Ever since the failure of the Suicide Valley, Hao Tianwang had suffered a big blow. He was full of confidence in an operation, but in the end, it ended in failure. He could not accept this reality no matter what. He thought hard, and in the past few days, he had finally found a flaw. He gradually realized that he had misjudged the situation. Although Xiao Bai had inherited the 72 transformations, his strength was probably not as powerful as he had imagined. The 72 transformations were so powerful that it would definitely take time to comprehend them safely. How could it be completely comprehended in such a short time? At that time, Hao Tianwang was intimidated by Xiao Bai's aura, so he did not think of this in time. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. When he thought about how he had been played by Xiao Bai, his anger erupted like a volcano, and he could not restrain his anger. He was preparing to make a comeback and completely annihilate this group of enemies, but he did not expect the other party to be so daring as to restrain him first. You don't know how to live. This time, I'll let you leave behind as many lives as you want. Hao Tianwang was full of confidence, but when he heard the creaking sounds that were getting more and more frequent, his expression suddenly changed, his eyelids twitched, and he realized something. They destroyed the Pillar of Light. Hao Tianwang said, hitting the nail on the head. King Wuling's eyes widened in disbelief, and he cried out in alarm. The Pillar of Light is protected by an array formation. How could it be destroyed? Hao Tianwang did not answer, but this was the truth, and he could not refute it. Both father and son realized how fierce the other party was. They had actually destroyed the Pillar of Light without anyone noticing, which was destroying the foundation of Sky City. Father, what do we do now? King Wuling anxiously asked. I'll go meet them and see who it is this time. So daring and unafraid of death. Hao Tianwang said without hesitation. Hao Tianwang was very clear about his son's cultivation compared to the enemy. Although he surpassed most of them, there was still a gap between him and Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai. If he rushed down rashly, what if he fell into the enemy's trap? He did not want anything to happen to his son. In addition, we must stabilize Sky City. Sky City has stood for tens of thousands of years, and cannot be destroyed in our hands. Once Sky City breaks away from the Imperial City, it will be a serious blow to our dignity. Hao Tianwang exhorted. Hao Tianwang's eyes were like torches, and he saw the key point at a glance. After such a reminder, King Wuling also came to a realization. He gritted his teeth and said, the enemy's intentions are really sinister. Let the Kuan ping out and let it stabilize Sky City. At this time, we can only rely on its power to do this. Hao Tianwang dropped these words, and with a whoosh he disappeared in front of King Wuling and swooped down towards the Imperial City. Along the way, he clearly saw the spiderweb-like cracks on the Pillar of Light, and his expression became colder and more gloomy. He knew that the Pillar of Light was in imminent danger, but he had no choice but to rely on the Kuan-Ping's divine power. His goal was to find the enemy and then destroy them. His eyes were like lightning, looking down from above, looking for suspicious people in the Imperial City. Chapter 1695. Pairs of eyes were focused on the light pillar, watching the crumbling Sky City. Screams sounded one after another, and most people did not understand what was going on. Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai hid in the dark and watched all this silently. Their eyes were fixed on Hao Tianwang, who was diving down rapidly in midair. The two of them were not in a hurry to rush out. Instead, they completely restrained their aura and deliberately hid. Their goal was Kuan Ping, not to get into a fierce battle with Hao Tianwang. Moreover, this was Hao Tianwang's territory, and it was easy to be surrounded. Although they were bold, they did not dare to take this risk. Hao Tianwang glanced around and did not find a suspicious target, so he could not help but be very angry. He could conclude that the target was in the Imperial City, but it was hidden so deep that even he could not detect it. Looking at the panicked crowd running around the streets of the Imperial City, Hao Tianwang's anger erupted like a volcano. Come out! He roared and slapped the ground with both hands. A biting cold wind spurted out from his palms, blowing a tornado and sweeping the Imperial City below. Crash! A large number of buildings were swept up by the tornado and shattered. Many people found it difficult to escape from this tornado. They screamed as they flew into the air, and then fell down heavily. Bang! 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 People seemed to be falling from the sky. Although these people were all cultivators and had cultivation, after experiencing this tornado, their cultivation was destroyed, and they did not have the strength to resist falling from the sky. After a while, there were many corpses on the messy ground. Suddenly, the people in the imperial city were horrified. Although the people who lived in the imperial city were of high status, those who really had no status were not even qualified to live in the imperial city, and could only live in places far away from the imperial city. Hao Tianwang did not put these people with status in his eyes. If it were other people, he would not put them in his eyes. Tang Zheng and Xiaobai did not suffer, but the two of them were stunned. They did not expect Hao Tianwang to be so cruel that he did not even spare his own people. Although the two of them had hidden themselves well, if they allowed Hao Tianwang to continue running amok, they would eventually be exposed. If they were ordinary citizens, Xiaobai, as a member of the imperial family, would definitely not let innocent people get involved. However, since these people lived in the center of the imperial city and were sincerely loyal to Hao Tianwang, then he could not save them. If Hao Tianwang does this, he will definitely lose a lot of people's support. The heavens are really helping me. Tang Zheng thought to himself. When Hao Tianwang saw that it didn't work, he became even angrier. He flipped his palm and slammed it in another direction. As the palm fell, an ice palm rapidly condensed and grew in midair. Not long after, the ice palm turned into a giant palm. Boom! After a loud bang, the ice palm slammed into the ground. As for the buildings on the ground, they were completely smashed into powder. As for the people, they completely disappeared along with the buildings. How could the others not understand the situation? If they stayed around the light pillar, they would definitely lose their lives. Not only the residents, but even the city guards fled out of the city desperately, only to get farther and farther away from the light pillar. Tang Zheng and Xiaobai watched in horror. Hao Tianwang's cruel means were rarely seen in their lives. If you want to destroy it, you must first make it crazy. Hao Tianwang is really crazy. Tang Zheng sighed secretly. Xiaobai exchanged glances with him, as if to say that they were about to be attacked. Tang Zheng signaled him to stay calm, and continued to look up at the sky city. Crack! With a loud crack, the light pillar broke inch by inch and fell from the sky. However, before it fell to the ground, it turned into rays of light and dissipated. The light pillar was destroyed. Not only was Tang Zheng and Little White unable to take their eyes off this scene, all the other people in the imperial city were dumbstruck as well. They never thought that they would see this scene in their lives. The light pillar was destroyed. What about the sky city? Wasn't Hao Tianwang invincible? How could this happen right under his nose? Many people had doubts in their hearts. Hao Tianwang's high-handed policies had been implemented over the years, and no one dared to resist because they were afraid of Hao Tianwang and King Wuling. It seemed that they were not invincible. Such a big thing happened right under his nose, but Heavenly King Hao could do nothing about it. He could only vent his anger on them. Everyone was angry but did not dare to say anything. Even many people who were in awe of Hao Tianwang and King Wuling gradually lost their respect. The pillar of light disappeared, and Sky City was like a hydrogen balloon, rising slowly, as if it was going to soar into the sky above the 9 heavens. Wow! There were exclamations in the imperial city. Hao Tianwang also turned his head to look at the Sky City in the distance, and his face was extremely gloomy. What was King Wuling doing? How could he sit and watch all of this happen? But at this critical moment, he could only choose to believe in his son. So he turned his head again, aimed at the imperial city and said, "Go to hell." He slammed his palms down. This time there were no ice palms, but a cold wind blew. Wherever it passed, the ice and snow, buildings and people turned into ice, and with a bang, they all shattered. There was no exception. That terrifying chill made people feel as if their souls were about to fly away. Seeing that the cold air was getting closer and closer, Xiaobai looked anxiously at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng stared at the Sky City, indifferent. Xiaobai had no choice but to wait quietly, but he was also ready. Suddenly, Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. Although it was night and he was far away, he still saw some clues. A huge figure appeared out of nowhere, holding up the Sky City. Yes, although the Sky City was incomparably huge, this figure was even bigger. It was like a boundless black cloud covering the sky above the Imperial City, blocking the stars in the sky above the 9 heavens. The Sky City stopped flying high in the sky. "Master, be careful." Xiaobai stood in front of Tangzheng and shouted in a low voice. The cold air was already in front of them. "Found the Kurenpeng." Tangzheng was overjoyed. As they expected, the Kurenpeng really appeared, but they didn't expect it to appear in such a situation. Xiaobai didn't care about the Kurenpeng and used the bloodthirsty scepter to draw a circle around them. With a bang, a raging fire rose from the ground, surrounded the two of them, and blocked the terrifying cold air. In midair, Hao Tianwang's pupils shrank, and the raging fire in his eyes finally found a place to vent. He roared, "I finally found you, Dai." Whoosh! A cold palm slapped towards the two of them. Before the cold palm arrived, the circle of flames had already been extinguished by the cold air. Tangzheng didn't pay attention to Hao Tianwang's attack at all. Instead, he stared at the Kurenpeng in the sky without blinking. He tiptoed and soared into the sky, flying directly towards the Kurenpeng. Xiaobai's speed wasn't inferior either. With the bloodthirsty scepter in his hand, he attacked Hao Tianwang. Countless streaks of blood shot out from the scepter, directly towards Hao Tianwang. Chapter 1696. Xiaobai blocked Hao Tianwang, and Tangzheng flew straight to the Sky City, heading straight for the target. That huge body had already occupied half of the sky, and Tangzheng also saw the Kurenpeng's intention clearly. It turned out to be carrying the Sky City. When its body came into contact with the Sky City, it was as if there was an invisible attractive force, firmly attracting each other. The Sky City no longer flew high into the sky. Many people in the Sky City were frightened. Although these people were all cultivators, they were not powerless. However, they had been enjoying themselves for too long and had no willpower to fight at all. Once they encountered a change, they panicked and were out of their wits. King Wuling looked at this group of people, his eyes spitting fire, and he wanted to kill them directly. However, these were his people, and they were also the influential class of the heavens beyond heaven. How could he kill them just because he wanted to? He stood in the air and roared, "Don't panic. Everyone listen to me. The enemy is attacking. Everyone, cheer up and catch the enemy." King Wuling's appearance stabilized the hearts of the people, and the screams gradually weakened. Pairs of eyes firmly locked onto King Wuling. King Wuling knew that he had to take the lead to let this group of people who were content to enjoy themselves do something serious. He was about to act when suddenly, he heard the sound of fierce fighting coming from below. He felt a chill in his heart, knowing that the enemy had appeared. He looked around and suddenly realized that the Sky City was the foundation, and he could not panic. Naturally, his father Hao Tianwang would take care of the Imperial City, so he did not need to worry. Thus he said loudly, "Everyone listen to me, take your positions, and guard your posts and homes. Anyone who invades, kill without mercy. Kill without mercy." A deafening roar echoed in the Sky City. However, this was not the influential class, but the Imperial Guards who guarded the Sky City. They were King Wuling's trusted subordinates. Ever since Hao Tianwang had faked his death, King Wuling had spent a huge sum of money to reorganize the Imperial Guards. This was the core of his power. The Imperial Guards were all elites chosen from the Outland. They had undergone extremely hard training, and were absolutely loyal to King Wuling. Their loyalty was even greater than that of Hao Tianwang. If they had to choose between King Wuling and Hao Tianwang, they would choose King Wuling without hesitation. The momentum of the Imperial Guards was so great that the other nobles gradually calmed down. They all showed off and shouted, as if they were going to catch the enemy. It was as if it was as simple as going to the Imperial City or hunting outside. This was completely different from when they were scared to the point where their legs turned to jelly. King Wuling did not stop them, and allowed them to rush to the edge of Sky City eagerly, as if they could immediately start a massacre. However, they did not wait for the attack that they expected. Only the sound of fierce battle came from the Imperial City. King Wuling was puzzled. There seemed to be something fishy, but he could not figure it out at the moment. He did not know that below Sky City, after the Kuanpeng carried Sky City, Tangjung also flew to the front of the Kuanpeng. The Kuanpeng could not take the initiative to attack, and could only passively counterattack. Tangjung did not want to attack the Kuanpeng. He stopped in the air in front of the Kuanpeng, and carefully observed it. However, the Kuanpeng was like a huge balloon. He could not see its eyes at all. Naturally, there was no way to communicate with it. However, this could not go on. He had to find a way to take the Kuanpeng away. Tangjung had an idea. The Kuanpeng was very mysterious. Although it could not speak, it definitely had its own consciousness. Therefore, he tried to communicate with it through divine sense. Perhaps there would be an unexpected surprise. He believed that the Kuanpeng could communicate. Otherwise, how could Hao Tianwang and King Wuling order it to move? If you can communicate, then I can too. Tangjung was very confident. He extended his divine sense and tried to communicate with the Kuanpeng. However, when the divine sense reached the surface of the Kuanpeng's body, a rebounding force bounced the divine sense back. Then, wouldn't there be no way to communicate? If the divine sense could not communicate, then he could only snatch it by force. Tangjung's expression turned cold. He stretched out his hand and placed it on the Kuanpeng's body. He tried to use Sumeru World to keep the Kuanpeng. Although the Kuanpeng was huge, Sumeru World was not small either. Naturally, it could be contained. Even if the Kuanpeng was unwilling, it was not up to it. He would take it away first and then communicate with it slowly. When his hand was placed on the Kuanpeng's body, his brain rumbled as if a huge amount of energy rushed in. A voice suddenly sounded in his mind. "What are you doing?" Tangjung was shocked. A voice actually appeared in his mind. Moreover, he had no way to resist all of this. Everything happened too quickly, but Tangjung calmed down quickly and asked, "Who are you?" "I am the Kuanpeng." "Kuanpeng?" Tangjung was shocked. He was suffering from not being able to communicate with the Kuanpeng. He did not expect to communicate like this. He looked at his hand that was placed on the Kuanpeng's body, and suddenly realized that it required physical contact to communicate with the divine sense. "Kuanpeng, quickly shrink and leave this place with me." Tangjung went straight to the point. "Who are you? Why should I go with you?" The Kuanpeng asked. "Kuanpeng, you are the foundation of Sky Beyond Sky. You have a great connection with the royal family. Hao Tianwang and King Wuling are both enemies of the royal family. They are sinners of Sky Beyond Sky. How can you be with them?" Tangjung said straightforwardly. "Royal family? I seem to have heard of it somewhere. It feels so familiar." The Kuanpeng said doubtfully. Tangjung moved and asked, "Don't you remember the royal family?" "I don't remember. I don't know why, but I lost a part of my memory. Could it be that tens of thousands of years ago, the internal strife between Hao Tianwang and the royal family caused the Kuanpeng to be damaged, and then it lost its memory?" Tangjung felt that this was very possible. This could explain why the Kuanpeng had been following the royal family, and then followed Hao Tianwang. Others thought that the Kuanpeng had betrayed the royal family. In fact, it had lost its memory and did not know its mission. It did not know its relationship with the royal family. This gave Hao Tianwang an opportunity. Later, the righteous faction and the demon clan came to Sky Beyond Sky. Hao Tianwang used them to repair the damaged foundation of Sky Beyond Sky. The Kuanpeng was related to Sky Beyond Sky, and was naturally a beneficiary. When Sky Beyond Sky was stabilized, the Kuanpeng recovered, and then became a member of King Wuling's camp. If the Kuanpeng regained its memory, it would definitely break with Hao Tianwang. It would be easy to take it away. However, the reality was that the Kuanpeng had lost its memory. It was not easy to find its memory. Moreover, at this critical moment, there was no time to do all this. Thus, Tangjung made a prompt decision and said, "Kuanpeng, do you want to find your lost memory? Then come with me. I will help you find your memory." The Kuanpeng could not be defeated by force. He could only use his wits. The Kuanpeng was not stupid. It refused directly and said, "No, I still have to help them carry Sky City." Chapter 1697. After hearing Kuanpeng's words, Tangjung rolled his eyes. How could Kuan Ping be so stubborn? It actually still cared about helping Hao Tianwang. He destroyed the light pillar with great difficulty in order to attack Hao Tianwang's dignity and arrogance. If Kuan Ping kept carrying Sky City, wouldn't he have failed? Tang Zheng naturally couldn't watch this scene. His heart moved and he persuaded. Kuan Peng, don't you want to regain your lost memories? Kuan Peng replied stubbornly. I will go with you in the future to regain my memories. Damn it, what did Hao Tianwang and the others do to Kuan Peng? It's like brainwashing. It's actually so loyal to them. Tang Zheng cursed in his heart. He knew that a long night was fraught with problems, especially when the battle below was very fierce. If he didn't seize the time and Xiaobai couldn't hold Hao Tianwang, he and Xiaobai would be in danger. Tang Zheng hesitated and said, Then I'm sorry. Sumeru's world flashed and a mysterious force tried to wrap around Kuan Peng. However, he failed because Kuan Peng also burst out a burst of energy and completely bounced off the attractive force, giving him a taste of his own medicine. This was not a joke. Kuan Peng actually offset the attractive force and made Sumeru's world ineffective. Tang Zheng was shocked. In this way, there was no way to take Kuan Peng away. After all, this huge monster was too big of a target, and it was impossible to take it away under the eyes of the enemy. Kuan Peng was stimulated by the attractive force of Sumeru's world and said angrily, What are you doing? Where are you going to take me? Tang Zheng was afraid that it would misunderstand and hurriedly explained, I want to take you to regain your memories. Kuan Peng said angrily, I have already told you that I have to carry Sky City first before I can regain my memories. Tang Zheng wanted to continue persuading, but he heard an angry shout from above. King Wuling led the Imperial Guards and rushed over to kill. It turned out that King Wuling realized that something was amiss when he heard that there was no movement for a long time, and that no enemy was attacking Sky City. Therefore, he led a group of Imperial Guards to investigate, and happened to see Tang Zheng. Especially when he saw Tang Zheng's hand on the Kuan Peng, and seemed to be communicating with it. He was shocked and immediately realized the seriousness of the matter. Last time in the Suicide Valley, Tang Zheng did not pay too much attention to the Kuan Peng, but this time, he did not rush to the Sky City, but instead communicated with the Kuan Peng using his divine sense. Others might not understand what this meant, but for King Wuling, it was as if a bolt of lightning flashed through his mind, and he immediately reacted. Did the enemy come for the Kuan Peng? After all, the Kuan Peng was the foundation of heavens beyond. In the vast outer sky, only Hao Tianwang and King Wuling knew the true importance of the Kuan Peng. The others only thought of it as a huge transportation tool. Did the enemy also know the importance of the Kuan Peng? Martial Spirit King was shocked by this thought that popped up in his mind. How could the enemy know such a confidential matter? It could not have been leaked by the father and son. King Wuling did not understand, but he knew that he had to stop Tang Zheng from communicating with the Kuan Peng. If the Kuan Peng leaked any secrets, it would be terrible. Stop him. Under the Martial Spirit King's order, the Imperial Guards charged towards Tang Zheng without any regard for their own safety. Tang Zheng glanced at them and remained indifferent. Sumeru world flashed and two figures flew out. Tang Zheng shouted, Stop them. The four symbols and Azura faced the Imperial Guards. Tang Zheng had to race against time to communicate with the Kuan Peng, so he could only let the others block the enemy first. The four symbols and the Azura were waiting for Tang Zheng's order, and they would charge into the large group of enemies without a care for their own safety. The Imperial Guards were numerous, numbering more than 100. They immediately surrounded the four symbols and Azura, but the two were not afraid at all. Instead, they looked at each other, as if they were secretly competing with each other. Kill. The Shura roared. Strands of Yin Qi began to spread out from his body like smoke. The Imperial Guards did not know how powerful the Yin Qi was. They only knew that there was a chill in their bones. They did not take it seriously at all. However, in the next second, they felt the Yin Qi enter their 8 extraordinary meridians and destroy their bodies. At a speed visible to the naked eye, their bodies started to rot. Ah! The screams pierced through the night sky. Only then did the companions realize that something was wrong. They scattered in all directions, but there was nothing they could do. They could only watch as their companions turned into a pool of thick water and fell from the sky. Don't let that damn thing come close. Someone pointed at it and screamed. Let's go together and kill them. King Wuling's pupils shrank. He had to turn the situation around as soon as possible. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The Imperial Guards did not dare to come close. They could only activate their treasures and attack the four symbols and Azura from afar. The four symbols was not afraid at all. They flew straight ahead. All kinds of treasures hit him, but only muffled sounds could be heard. They could not hurt him. He walked in front of an Imperial Guard. He reached out and grabbed. His palm grew in the wind, and quickly turned into a giant palm. With a clench of his 5 fingers, a few Imperial Guards were caught in his palm. Pa, 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 the sound of bones breaking rang out continuously. The Imperial Guards were turned into minced meat. Seeing that the Imperial Guards were avoiding the Yin Chi, Azura raised his Azura saber. The blade grew rapidly and turned into a giant saber, slashing down from the sky. Pew pew pew. A few Imperial Guards happened to be cut by the blade and were cut in half. They died on the spot. The attacks of the four symbols and Azura were very fierce. It was especially shocking. Although King Wuling was an elite of the realm beyond heaven, he had lived like a prince for many years and rarely saw such a tragic situation. He could not help but be shocked. King Wuling knew that this could not go on. So he rushed out personally and shouted, "Die quickly!" Hua! An ice sword appeared in his hand. It fell from the sky and slashed at the Azura saber. Fierce chi flew everywhere, splitting the sky. The surrounding Imperial Guards could not dodge in time. They were affected by the chi and died in large numbers. King Wuling became angrier as he watched. The Imperial Guards had just appeared, and so many of them had died. It was really embarrassing. Without waiting for the ice sword's attack to be exhausted, his second round of attacks came unexpectedly. It swept over like a violent storm. Boom boom boom. In an instant, the Azura and King Wuling fought fiercely. The Azura saber and the ice sword went back and forth, fighting very happily. On the other hand, the four symbols rampaged among the Imperial Guards. In a few moves, they scattered the Imperial Guards. In an instant, the scene became chaotic. The Imperial Guards were not a match for the four symbols at all. They were scattered everywhere. Moreover, the four symbols did not use his full strength. That was because he had to be careful of Tangzheng. He did not want the enemy to disturb Tangzheng when he and the Azura were unprepared. No matter how tragic the situation was, Tangzheng turned a deaf ear to it. It was as if he was not involved. He was thinking of ways to persuade the Kuanpeng. However, the Kuanpeng was stubborn and did not move. To read a novel, please visit Chapter 1698. The battle in midair had already attracted Hao Tianwang's attention. He was furious. The enemy was actually coming for the Kuanpeng, which was far beyond his expectations. The enemy was putting himself in danger, and had such a clear goal. He must have a great plan. In particular, the Kuanpeng was the foundation of the realm beyond heaven. It had unpredictable magical powers. If the enemy was using the Kuanpeng to do something unfavorable to him, it would be bad news for him. No matter what, he could not let this happen. Therefore, Hao Tianwang's killing intent toward Xiaobai became even stronger. He said with a murderous look, "No matter what your plan is, I want to tell you that it is useless. I will not let you succeed." Xiaobai looked up at Tangzheng's situation, and was extremely anxious. He also understood that the situation had reached the worst point. Although they had found the Kuanpeng, they were surrounded. In this way, it would be even more difficult for them to take the Kuanpeng away. However, it was obvious that Tangzheng did not give up hope. Naturally, Xiaobai would not give up hope either. Xiaobai was not afraid of Hao Tianwang's threat at all. He retorted, "This is not up to you." Whoosh! A bloody light shot out from the bloodthirsty scepter, but it was immediately blocked by a thick ice wall. Whoosh! An ice sword pierced out from the ice wall, and arrived in front of Xiaobai in the blink of an eye. Xiaobai hurriedly waved the bloodthirsty scepter. Boom! The two magic treasures collided. Two rays of light, one white and one red, gradually dyed the dark night sky and illuminated the surrounding ruins. You have made great progress. If I let you live, I'm afraid that one day in the future you will ruin my plans. Therefore you must die. Hao Tianwang roared. Xiaobai had changed a lot after meeting him twice. Hao Tianwang became very wary of him. As soon as his voice fell, Xiaobai felt the air around him turn cold. With a rumbling sound, flames rose from his body and quickly spread in all directions. However, these flames could not completely disperse the ice. The ice seemed to be endless. When he melted a part of it, it quickly condensed back into ice. Kill! Xiaobai let out a furious roar. Countless strands of blood shot out from the bloodthirsty scepter and flew towards Hao Tianwang. All of a sudden, tiny ice swords appeared in front of him without any warning and attacked the incoming bloodlines fiercely. The blood threads were completely severed. The huge ice sword pierced straight through, forcing the bloodthirsty scepter to retreat. In the end, Xiaobai's cultivation was inferior to Hao Tianwang's. It was already a miracle that he could last this long. In the end, he was still no match for Hao Tianwang's attacks. Hao Tianwang sneered. You can't hold on anymore? Your royal family is indeed weak. I am the ruler of this sky beyond heaven. The ice sword suddenly emitted a dazzling light, and a fierce aura swept across the sky. Boom! The ice sword suddenly grew larger, almost occupying half of the sky. The monstrous sword intent completely enveloped the bloodthirsty scepter and Xiaobai. Puff! Xiaobai spat out a mouthful of blood. It was as if half of his strength had been sucked away. Like a cannonball, he flew backwards and rushed towards Sky City. Hao Tianwang took advantage of the situation and chased after him, stepping into the air. Tang Zheng saw Xiaobai's miserable state from afar. He sighed in his heart. After all, they were not as strong as Hao Tianwang. This was an insurmountable gap. What should I do? The Kuan Peng was stubborn and refused to leave. Should I just give up? If I miss this chance, I'm afraid I won't even be able to see the Kuan Peng again, let alone communicate with it. Just as he was hesitating, Xiaobai had already flown in front of him. Hao Tianwang followed closely behind, directly rushing towards Tang Zheng. When enemies meet, their eyes would turn red. Hao Tianwang had a deep impression of Tang Zheng. Immediately, a murderous aura swept across the sky. He roared, Tang Zheng, let's see how you can escape. Whoosh! The ice sword fiercely pierced over. The hidden mystic sword appeared out of nowhere and fiercely slashed out, facing Hao Tianwang's ice sword. Dang! 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 The two magic treasures kept hitting each other in the air. The sword chi was like a rainbow. Within dozens of meters, no one dared to get close, fearing that they would be caught in the crossfire. Tang Zheng's cultivation was not as good as Hao Tianwang's. He was also multitasking. How could he win? After a while, there was a crisis. The hidden mystic sword could only block tiredly, and could not take the initiative to attack. Xiaobai stopped in front of Tang Zheng and anxiously asked, Master, how is it? Tang Zheng disappointedly said, As long as I touch the Kuan Peng's body, I can communicate with it. But the Kuan Peng has lost its memory. It doesn't remember the royal family. I persuaded it to leave with me and find its memory, but it didn't listen. Xiaobai angrily said, If it doesn't listen, then take it away. Tang Zheng bitterly smiled. It was easy to say, but how could it be so easy to do? Xiaobai also realized that his words were not reliable. He resentfully said, Then let me wake it up by scolding it. It actually forgot the royal family. Doesn't it know that it has been with the royal family for tens of thousands of years? After saying this, he put his hand on the Kuan Peng. Xiaobai was injured and stained with his own blood. After he put his hand on the Kuan Peng, a blood light immediately lit up. At the same time, the Kuan Peng's body also lit up. Ha! Tang Zheng opened his eyes wide in surprise. He had tried so hard to persuade the Kuan Peng for so long. Why didn't the Kuan Peng react? Xiaobai just put his hand on the Kuan Peng's body and it reacted. Tang Zheng stared at the ball of bloody light, deep in thought. Could it be because of the blood? No. Tang Zheng immediately denied it. It was definitely not someone's blood. It had to be the blood of the royal family. Then the Kuan Peng would react. The Kuan Peng and the royal family had been together for tens of thousands of years. There was probably a mysterious connection between the two. This was probably something that even Hao Tianwang and Xiaobai did not know. This time it was completely triggered by chance. If he had known this earlier, he would have asked Xiaobai to persuade the Kurenpeng, and he would have stopped Hao Tianwang. Then, he would not have wasted so much time. Tang Zheng had no time to regret. He hurriedly reminded, Xiaobai, the Kurenpeng is reacting. Hurry up and communicate with it. Without Tang Zheng's reminder, Xiaobai had already reacted. That was because the Kurenpeng's voice also sounded in his mind. Who are you? I am your grandpa. Xiaobai answered angrily. However, the Kurenpeng's reaction was out of his expectation. The Kurenpeng became silent. Then, the light on the Kurenpeng's body started to spread rapidly in all directions with Xiaobai's hand as the origin. It was extremely fast. It seemed that the light was going to cover the Kurenpeng completely. Xiaobai also forgot to speak. He had realized something and looked at all this in a daze. Tang Zheng also looked up at the Kurenpeng. He did not know what the spreading light meant. However, he was looking forward to it. In the distance, Hao Tianwang was stunned when he saw this. He had studied the Kurenpeng for many years. He had not gained much, and such a situation had never happened before. He did not know what it meant. However, he was sure of one thing. This was definitely not a situation that he wanted to see. Chapter 1699. Stop! Hao Tianwang roared. With a swoosh, the ice sword split into two, and then into tens of thousands, covering the sky and earth. With a terrifying sound of breaking through the air, they attacked Xiaobai at the same time. Xiaobai, don't worry about communicating. I'll block him for you. Tang Zheng gave up on communicating. His figure flashed and turned into a ray of light, facing Hao Tianwang. Whoosh! A black hole appeared in front of him, and the sky-swallowing technique expanded to its maximum power. Sky swallowing. The black hole expanded rapidly as if it was really going to expand to the same size as the sky. Those ice swords had no way to pass through the black hole, and were completely sucked in. These ice swords were not the real bodies of magic treasures, but illusions. However, they were not any weaker than ordinary magic treasures. It was a pity that they encountered the sky-swallowing technique. Now that they were in the imperial city, Hao Tianwang's territory, Tang Zheng was not afraid of hurting the innocent, so he dared to use the sky-swallowing technique so unscrupulously. This was Tang Zheng truly using the sky-swallowing realm to his heart's content. The power was as he had expected, abnormally terrifying. Hao Tianwang's mind actually trembled, as if it was going to be sucked into the black hole. He reached out his hand, and an ice sword struggled to escape the suction of the black hole, and flew back to his hand. He and the ice sword became one, occupying half of the sky. The sky was completely frozen, becoming a part of the ice sword. Hao Tianwang merged into it, and his body could not be seen at all. However, his voice rumbled like thunder. You can die proud. Ever since I mastered the divine technique, no one has been able to force me to use the man and sword as one. Tang Zheng sneered and said, Die? Then you'll have to break my sky-swallowing technique first. Sky-swallowing technique? You really think you can swallow the sky? Hao Tianwang disagreed. The sky is full of me. I'll see how you swallow me. Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? After a slight pause, Hao Tianwang finished preparing and roared, Kill! Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sky full of ice swords flew towards the black hole. This was clearly more powerful than the previous ice swords. Unfortunately, the black hole took them all in without giving the ice swords a chance to escape. Not long after, all the ice swords that flew over disappeared. In the heaven realm, these ice swords turned into waves of energy. They were not weak at all. They silently merged into the tree of life. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. Hao Tianwang's attack was indeed extraordinary. The energy contained within it was enormous, and it had actually benefited him. However, Tang Zheng was not happy for too long. His heart suddenly sank, and he found some clues. Hao Tianwang's attacks were endless, as if there was no end to them, one round after another. As the saying goes, dripping water can penetrate a stone. With so many attacks coming one after another, as time passed, it was actually effective. The edge of the black hole trembled slightly. How could Tang Zheng not understand what was going on? His heartstrings trembled and his face turned pale. Hao Tianwang's attack is actually so powerful that even the sky-devouring technique can't block it. Although he had completely comprehended the sky-devouring technique and reached the sky-devouring realm, there was a huge gap between his cultivation and Hao Tianwang's. The sky-devouring technique could restrain Hao Tianwang, but it might not be able to completely restrain him. This was because Hao Tianwang's continuous attacks were also a huge threat to the sky-devouring technique. This was how it worked. There was nothing in the world that could absolutely overwhelm everything. It was either the east wind that overwhelmed the west wind, or the west wind that overwhelmed the east wind. Hao Tianwang could barely resist the sky-devouring technique, but it was not so easy for other people and things. A huge black hole hung high in the sky. Once a huge suction force enveloped someone, that person would be sucked into it with a whoosh, turning into energy to replenish the heaven realm. The ruins in the imperial city also flew up quickly, covering the sky and the earth. There were ruins everywhere, but the black hole took them all in without being picky at all. Rumble. Suddenly, a series of strange loud sounds came from the ground. What's going on? Many people's hearts were thumping. They did not know what was going on, but the next scene made them tremble. The ground actually rose high, and pieces of soil and rocks flew up. Not long after, a huge pit appeared in the imperial city. All the soil and rocks were sucked into the black hole. Only then did everyone understand the terror of the sky-devouring technique. This black hole could devour everything. Not only people, but even the earth could be devoured. It seemed that the sky-devouring technique was not impossible. Hao Tianwang was also shocked by this scene. He had never seen such an evil divine ability. If the entire imperial city was swallowed into the black hole, it would definitely be a painful blow to him. He could not sit back and watch. Suddenly, he glanced from the corner of his eye, and his eyelids twitched. He was secretly delighted as if he had discovered a new world. He laughed out loud and said, "So your sky-devouring technique is not invincible." He found the traces of trembling at the edge of the black hole. This was not there before. It was obvious that his attack had worked. Hao Tianwang seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. He used all his attacks, and half the sky turned into a huge ice sword. Whoosh! The huge sword flew toward the black hole. This huge sword was much bigger than the black hole, and Hao Tianwang was attached to it. He was bound to destroy the black hole with this attack. The overwhelming terror actually hit him in the face, and Tang Zheng's heartstrings kept trembling. He found that the trembling at the edge of the black hole was getting more and more intense. No matter how he activated the sky-devouring technique, he could not make up for it. Hao Tianwang is really too powerful. Perhaps the sky-devouring technique can only be a real threat to him after my cultivation increases greatly. Tang Zheng understood. He turned his head and looked at Xiao Bai and the Kuanpeng. He found that the light had completely spread to the Kuanpeng's body. Xiao Bai and the Kuanpeng were motionless, as if they had lost consciousness. They were indifferent to the earth-shattering battle outside. They must have reached a critical moment. I have to hold on until the last moment. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth and did not retreat. He activated all his power, and kept using the sky-devouring technique, pushing the power of the sky-devouring technique to the extreme. Boom! The huge sword pierced the black hole. The black hole trembled violently, but the huge sword was also shattered and sucked into the black hole. However, the huge sword was too big. It could not be shattered in a short period of time. Both sides were fighting a war of attrition to see who would be able to hold on until the end. Pa! The edge of the black hole trembled a few times, and a gap appeared. The suction of the black hole decreased sharply. Tang Zheng tried to use his power to make up for it, but he found that it was a drop in the bucket. He had consumed too much power. Although the sky-devouring technique was powerful, it consumed a lot of power. It was commendable that he could only hold on for so long. There were more and more gaps in the black hole, and the huge sword was getting smaller and smaller. Almost everyone else was attracted by this scene. They had already hidden outside the range of the black hole's suction. They did not dare to take the risk. Even King Wuling did not dare to be so careless. At the same time, Thousands of pairs of eyes inside and outside the imperial city were also watching this scene. They had never seen anyone who dared to fight against Hao Tianwang, let alone be in a stalemate. Chapter 1700. More and more holes appeared in the black hole, and the aura became more and more chaotic. The giant sword continued to shatter, and the fragments were sucked into the black hole, becoming smaller and smaller. Boom! A thunderous sound rang out, and a blinding light flashed in the air. Everyone subconsciously closed their eyes. However, when they opened their eyes again, everything had changed. The black hole had disappeared, and the ice sword's light was weak. A crack ran through it, and although the ice sword was not destroyed, its vitality had been greatly damaged. Hao Tianwang appeared again, standing next to the ice sword. He looked up at the sky with his mouth wide open. Following his gaze, everyone's mind shook, and they were dumbstruck. The sky had collapsed. A corner of the sky had collapsed, and a huge hole had appeared. This scene frightened everyone, including Hao Tianwang and Tang Zheng. The two involved had never thought that the exhibition would turn out like this. How could the sky collapse? Hao Tianwang looked at Tang Zheng with fear and said through gritted teeth, "This is all because of you." Even if the other party was killed and a corner of the sky above the imperial city collapsed, this would still be a huge humiliation and scar. It would be a ghastly sight hanging here. Anyone who raised their head would be able to see it. This was truly a slap to his face. Tang Zheng had used up a lot of energy. If Hao Tianwang attacked again, then he would not have enough energy to use the sky-swallowing technique. The more this was the case, the more he did not dare to reveal his true situation. He deliberately provoked, "Hao Tianwang, this is just the beginning. My sky-swallowing technique is not just for show. It can really swallow the sky." Hao Tianwang did not believe it at first, but now he had no choice but to believe it. Facts spoke louder than words. Wasn't that corner of the sky right in front of him? What should he do? Hao Tianwang began to think. King Wuling and the Imperial Guard also stopped attacking, confronting the four symbols and Azura. King Wuling was not afraid of these two, but his Imperial Guard was not their match. This caused the two sides to be in a stalemate for a long time, and there was no clear victor. The scene of the sky collapsing caused both sides to fall into silence. They looked at each other, waiting for their own people to give the order, so that they could attack again. However, after waiting for a long time, there was still no order to attack. Tang Zheng and Hao Tianwang looked at each other from a distance. Both of them wanted to kill the other, but neither of them acted rashly. Tang Zheng was deliberately stalling for time. The longer he delayed, the better. Hao Tianwang was afraid of the sky-swallowing technique. He did not know that Tang Zheng was temporarily unable to use the sky-swallowing technique. Otherwise, he would definitely attack Tang Zheng without hesitation. Suddenly, Tang Zheng heard some movement behind him. It turned out to be Xiaobai. He was overjoyed and shouted, "Master, I did it!" Success? Tang Zheng shivered and immediately understood that Xiaobai was talking about persuading Kunpeng. For the time being, he had no energy and mind to care about how Xiaobai did it. He could not wait to order, "Quickly take Kunpeng away." "I won't go. I want to go with Master," Xiaobai said stubbornly. "How can that be? Kunpeng is the most important," Tang Zheng retorted. Xiaobai was unmoved and insisted, "No one can be compared with Master. Master is more important than Kunpeng." After saying that, Xiaobai actually let go of his hand. He held the bloodthirsty scepter with both hands and pointed it at Hao Tianwang from afar. It was as if he was saying that he would rather die in battle than surrender. Hao Tianwang was shocked and his expression changed. This was because he understood the conversation between Xiaobai and Tang Zheng. How could Xiaobai persuade Kunpeng? Wasn't Kunpeng stubborn? What method did Xiaobai use to make Kunpeng change its mind? Hao Tianwang could not figure it out. However, he knew that if he did not act now, it would be too late. Hence he roared, "Kill!" Monstrous killing intent surged out again and engulfed Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng could not block it at all. He could only watch as the ice sword flew towards him. Hao Tianwang was overjoyed. It turned out that Tang Zheng was bluffing and was already an arrow at the end of its flight. He had almost been frightened by him. "Don't even think about hurting my master." The four symbols and Azura roared loudly and rushed towards Tang Zheng without any regard for their own safety. They tried to block the sword for him. However, they were too far away and could not block the sword in time. Hao Tianwang's face revealed a sinister smile. It seemed that he was determined to win this sword. Whoosh! Suddenly, a ray of light covered Tang Zheng. The ice sword pierced the light, but the light did not waver. The ice sword suddenly changed direction and stabbed towards Hao Tianwang, giving him a taste of his own medicine. Hao Tianwang cried out in alarm. The ice sword was fierce, but after all, it was his treasure. With a thought, the ice sword's attack disappeared. Looking closely, Xiaobai was already in front of Tang Zheng to protect him. As for behind them, it was Kuan Peng. The attack just now was Kuan Peng's counterattack. It blocked Tang Zheng's attack. Kuan Peng had such a divine ability. Even Hao Tianwang's attack might not be able to hurt it. Especially now that Hao Tianwang had used up a lot of his power. His power was greatly reduced. It was even more impossible for him to break through Kuan Peng's attack. Hao Tianwang was so angry that his whole body trembled. He pointed his sword at Kuan Peng and said, "Kuan Peng, do you know what you are doing?" Kuan Peng's voice rang out. However, it did not ring in their ears. Instead, it rang in everyone's mind. It actually did not need physical contact to be able to communicate with its divine sense. Hao Tianwang, you have already recovered your memory. You have already remembered what you did in the past. Do you think that I will still stay by your side? This sentence caused Hao Tianwang's mind to be greatly shocked. He opened his eyes wide in disbelief and said with a trembling voice, "How did you recover your memory?" "The blood of the royal family can recover my memory. You didn't think of that, right?" The blood of the royal family. Hao Tianwang's pupils shrunk as he stared at Xiaobai's palm. There was no blood on it. If he knew that the blood of the royal family had this kind of effect, Hao Tianwang would definitely not let Xiaobai get close to Kuan Peng. Of course, if Tang Zheng and Xiaobai knew about this, they would not have gone through such an intense battle and accidentally allowed Kuan Peng to recover its memory. Xiaobai proudly raised his hand and said, "Hao Tianwang, you traitor. In the end, you will never understand the power of the royal family." Hao Tianwang coldly snorted and said, "What's so great about the royal family? Back then, weren't they all wiped out by me? Only you are a fish that escaped the net." Xiaobai's eyes burned with anger and said, "You traitor still have the face to mention the past. You swore to be loyal to my father, but you went back on your words and betrayed him. A disloyal and unjust person like you will pay the price one day." "Ha ha. Price? What right do you have to say this? What can you do to me? I will first kill you, a fish that escaped the net. Then the royal family will completely disappear from the sky." Chapter 1701. Xiaobai retorted in high spirits. "A spent force? Then you should break through the Kuan Peng's defense first before you talk big." After saying that, Xiaobai protected Tang Zheng and retreated to the Kuan Peng's side. Tang Zheng looked at the Shura and the four symbols that were surrounded and hurriedly shouted, "For symbols, Shura, come back." Hearing that, the four symbols and Shura quickly opened up a bloody path and flew towards them. Hao Tianwang said angrily, "Do you really think the Kuan Peng can stop me? It was hurt in the battle that year, which means its divine power is not omnipotent." Hao Tianwang raised his ice sword and rushed over aggressively. "Kuan Peng, it's up to you." Xiaobai raised his head and shouted, "Hua!" A ray of light rose from the Kuan Peng's body, protecting the two of them and the four symbols and Shura that were flying over. At this moment, Hao Tianwang had also arrived. The ice sword immediately slashed towards the few of them, but it hit the ray of light. Just like before, there was no earth-shattering momentum, and the ice sword flew backwards. Hao Tianwang hurriedly caught the ice sword, but was sent flying by the force of the ice sword flying backwards. Xiaobai and Tang Zheng looked at each other and smiled. How can the Kuan Peng's divine power be broken through so easily? Let's see what other abilities Hao Tianwang has. Tang Zheng's head turned cold. The purpose of this trip was not to kill Hao Tianwang. Even with the Kuan Peng they could not do this. Then there was no need to complicate matters. Taking the Kuan Peng away was the most important thing. Therefore he whispered to Xiao Bai, quickly let the Kuan-Pung leave with us. Leaving this place is the most important thing. Xiao Bai immediately accepted the order and said to the Kuan-Pung with his divine sense, Kuan-Pung, let's go. Xiao Bai and the Kuan-Pung already had a mysterious divine sense communication, unlike outsiders who could only passively accept the Kuan-Pung's communication. Whoosh! The Kuan-Pung's body lit up. Then the Kuan-Pung moved. The Sky City also moved. It flew up from the Kuan-Pung's back and flew towards the 9 heavens. Ah! Screams could be heard coming from Sky City. Since the Kuan-Pung had removed its magical power, the city in the sky could no longer be fixed. Come, let's go to the back of the Kuan-Pung. Xiao Bai shouted as the 4 of them flew onto the back of the Kuan-Pung. They were enveloped by a layer of light, so they didn't have to worry about the enemy's attack. Hao Tianwang was enraged. He pointed his sword at the Kuan-Pung and yelled, Stop them! Don't let any of them go! Attack! King Wuling understood and immediately ordered everyone to attack. Colorful magic weapons whizzed towards the Kuan-Pung. However, when the magic weapon met the light on the back of the Kuan-Pung, the attack disappeared. The magic weapon changed its direction and attacked its master. Some people were not strong enough, and were not able to control their own magic treasures in time. They were even killed by their own magic treasures and died on the spot. Everyone was thrown off their feet. It was a mess. King Wuling shouted orders, but he couldn't stop this mess. He was unwilling to give up and attacked the Kuan-Pung himself. The effect was the same. He couldn't break through the Kuan-Pung's magical power. The Kuan-Pung flew into the distance. Its huge body was shrinking bit by bit. However, it was still a huge monster. Hao Tianwang and King Wuling chased after it with their subordinates. They kept roaring and trying to make the Kuan-Pung stop. Xiao Bai looked at this scene coldly and said, The Kuan-Pung has been taken over by this traitor for so many years. Now, it has finally returned to its rightful owner. The Kuan-Pung has regained its freedom. Tang Zheng said worriedly, The Kuan-Pung is a big target. Although it can block their attacks, if they keep chasing, when will it end? Xiao Bai had an idea. He smiled mischievously and said, Master, I know what you're thinking. Then I'll make them unable to chase us. Tang Zheng looked at Xiao Bai curiously. He didn't know what he meant. Xiao Bai didn't explain much. He said to the Kuan-Pung, Kuan-Pung, it's up to you. Make the city in the sky crash. Yes, the Kuan-Pung replied calmly. Hao Tianwang and the others chased after it with all their might. However, they couldn't hurt the other party. This made them very frustrated and helpless. Suddenly, the sky darkened. Everyone still didn't understand what was going on. They hurriedly looked up. Immediately, pairs of eyes opened wide. They looked at this scene in disbelief. Many people couldn't help but stop in their tracks. They stared at the sky in horror. Their eyes couldn't help but turn dark. Sky City was actually descending rapidly, heading straight for the crowd. Hao Tianwang and King Wuling were also stunned. The city in the sky had been floating in the air since ancient times. There had never been a situation where it fell. What was going on? They scratched their heads but couldn't figure out the reason. The cruel reality didn't allow them to continue thinking. They had to find a way to stop all this. What was the city in the sky? It was the symbol of his power and majesty. It was the result of his painstaking efforts for tens of thousands of years. How could he just let it fall? Hold the city in the sky? Hao Tianwang didn't decline. He flew into the sky and raised his hands forward. The air quickly dropped to the freezing point and condensed into pieces. 2 huge palms appeared in the air and held the city in the sky. Tang Zheng was also stunned by this scene. He didn't understand and hurriedly asked, Xiao Bai, what's going on? Xiao Bai said mysteriously, Master, all of this is the credit of the Kuan-Pung. You definitely can't imagine that apart from the Kuan-Pung's ability to give someone a taste of their own medicine, it also has another incredible ability. Tang Zheng was dumbfounded. He anxiously urged, Don't be mysterious. Tell me what divine ability it is. When we first came to the sky beyond heaven, didn't you see many mountains floating in the air? Also, the city in the sky and those floating mountains are actually based on the same principle. They all have a mysterious connection with the Kuanpeng and are controlled by the Kuanpeng. Ah! Tang Zheng stared at the Kuanpeng's back and was speechless for a long time. This divine ability was indeed too heaven-defying. No wonder the city in the sky suddenly fell. The Kuanpeng has recovered its memory and this divine ability, so it can easily control the city in the sky, Xiaobai added. Although Hao Tianwang has imprisoned the Kuanpeng for countless years, he doesn't know this secret at all. Tang Zheng looked in the direction of the city in the sky and asked curiously, "Can Hao Tianwang hold the city in the sky?" Xiaobai revealed a playful smile and said, "He can try and see how long he can last." Tang Zheng understood. No wonder Xiaobai was so confident that he could get rid of the pursuers. With the city in the sky falling, how could Hao Tianwang have the mood to chase after them? Hao Tianwang really didn't have the mood to chase after them. Blue veins appeared on his forehead, and he gritted his teeth. His hands seemed to be crushed by the city in the sky. Cracks had already appeared on the giant ice palm in the air, as if it would collapse at any moment. "What are you waiting for? Come and help me!" Hao Tianwang roared at King Wuling in annoyance. King Wuling seemed to wake up from a dream, and also joined the team holding the city in the sky. Chapter 1702. Pairs of hands were holding up the Sky City, and it seemed that the Sky City was really being held up. However, when many people secretly felt lucky, everything changed again. Sky City slowly fell down again, and their arms felt like they were about to be crushed. Kacha! The huge palm condensed by Hao Tianwang was torn apart, turned into ice, and fell from the sky. Without the power of Hao Tianwang, how could the others hold up the Sky City? Whoosh! Almost instantly, the speed of the Sky City's fall increased greatly, and many people's arms were broken on the spot. Screams and exclamations sounded one after another. If this continued, these people would definitely be crushed into meat patties by the Sky City. Hao Tianwang gritted his teeth and shouted, "Retreat!" With an order, he took the lead and flew into the distance. The others did not dare to stay, and flew in all directions in a daze, not wanting to be crushed into meat patties by the Sky City. Without the power to lift, the Sky City was like a wild horse out of control, and like a meteorite falling from the sky, it fell to the ground with a whoosh. The people on the Sky City were shocked and screamed again, finally realizing that a great danger was coming. Even if they were cultivators, if they fell with the Sky City, the huge impact was enough to destroy their internal organs. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Figures flew up from the Sky City one by one, standing in the air, watching the Sky City fall with pale faces. The people in the Imperial City had long been frightened, and after coming to their senses, they fled in all directions. On the contrary, outside the Imperial City, the people at the lowest level watched this scene in high spirits. They never thought that they would be able to see such a scene in their lifetime. Boom! There was a loud noise, and the earth shook. The Sky City hit the ground like a meteorite. The earth seemed to have an earthquake, and dust was raised all over the sky. A huge pit appeared in the Imperial City, and even the places that were not hit quickly collapsed and fell apart. The Sky City was destroyed, and so was the Imperial City. Hao Tianwang's base camp, which he had operated for so many years, was destroyed. Hao Tianwang's dignity was destroyed along with this. Hao Tianwang stood in the air, his face alternating between red and white. It was extremely terrifying as he stared fixedly at this scene. His mood was extremely complicated. This was the most painful Waterloo of his life. After this battle, everything he had built up before collapsed with a loud bang. He wanted to kill. He looked up to the sky and let out a long howl. The air in all directions quickly condensed and soon turned into ice. Those who were too close to him were frozen and died on the spot. Everyone retreated in panic. Even King Wuling did not dare to get involved. He was afraid that it would be too late. No one dared to dissuade him. They were all trembling with fear. They were all fully aware of the fury in Hao Tianwang's heart. Someone stealthily looked in the direction where the Kuanpeng flew away. Unknowingly, the huge body of the Kuanpeng had disappeared. However, King Wuling knew very well that the Kuanpeng must have become smaller, so he couldn't find it at all. Perhaps they were hiding in some corner, watching this scene with schadenfreude. Indeed, this was the case. Above the 9 heavens, in a huge cloud, the somersault cloud was hiding there. The few of them stood on the cloud and looked down at everything below. The Kuanpeng had changed greatly. It was like a bird, held in Xiaobai's hand. Xiaobai couldn't hide his surprise and said, "Master, this is not a destructive blow to this group of traitors, but it will definitely make them unable to recover in a short period of time." Tang Zheng nodded in agreement. After this battle, Hao Tianwang's vitality will be greatly damaged. He won't have the energy to target us at all. We can also temporarily recuperate and gradually grow stronger. Xiaobai rolled his eyes and said worriedly, "What if Hao Tianwang is too angry and leads his troops to attack us? What should we do?" Tang Zheng chuckled and said, "If he really does that, then he must be out of his mind. This time, it's not as simple as destroying the Sky City and the Imperial City. It's a fatal blow to his dignity. If he attacks us without caring about anything, do you believe that his backyard will be on fire?" Xiaobai's eyes lit up, and he seemed to be deep in thought. Tang Zheng added, "In fact, Hao Tianwang's rule is not as firm as we thought. Perhaps because of his guilty conscience, he has been implementing high-pressure policies. The ordinary residents of Sky Beyond are living in an abyss of suffering. They only fear Hao Tianwang and don't dare to fight back. It's different now. This destructive blow will definitely spread throughout Sky Beyond. Those who have long been dissatisfied with Hao Tianwang will definitely take advantage of the situation. Many people will also know that the royal family has returned and is powerful. Perhaps many people will even seek refuge with you. Hao Tianwang must reorganize his backyard and rebuild his prestige. Only then will he have the time to deal with us." After listening to Tang Zheng's analysis, Xiaobai was deep in thought. Finally, he came to a realization and exclaimed excitedly, "Master is really amazing. Your analysis is so thorough. This is really an unexpected surprise. I didn't expect that in order to find the Kuanpeng, he would give Hao Tianwang such a heavy blow." As he spoke, he looked down at the Kuanping and couldn't help but have a strong hope for it. "Let's go, no need to look. Let's go back to the barbarian land first." Tang Zheng rode the somersault cloud, mixed in with other clouds, and quietly left. Wherever they passed, many people stopped and looked in the direction of the Sky Palace City. The Sky City was suspended in mid-air. Even if it was far away, it could be seen clearly. Whenever someone had the thought of rebelling, they would look up at the Sky City in the distance and suppress this thought. They never expected that the Sky City would crash in front of everyone's eyes. This great news spread quickly and spread to even farther places in Sky Beyond. The thought of rebelling in people's hearts unconsciously ignited again. This time, it was no longer suppressed. Instead, it spread rapidly like a spark starting a prairie fire. The elites of Sky Beyond were basically concentrated in the Imperial City and Sky Beyond, but it didn't mean that there were no elite masters among the people. The saying that masters were among the people was not only applicable to the human world, but also to Sky Beyond. Many elite masters hid among the people, unwilling to work for Hao Tianwang. These elites began to contact each other, and the fire of revolution quietly burned. Tang Zheng witnessed all this, but he wasn't surprised. This was because in the history of the human world, this scene had played out countless times. Xiaobai was seeing this for the first time in his life. He couldn't help but wave his fists excitedly. This was Sky Beyond, his home, and it was quietly changing. "Master, when I go back, I'll join forces with these people. There's strength in numbers. If we fight against Hao Tianwang together, our chances of winning will be higher." Xiaobai said excitedly. "You can do that, but you also have to be careful. The people are mixed in with the honest folk, and there are also many who have bad intentions. These people must be strictly guarded against and can't mix into our team. Otherwise, there will be endless troubles in the future." Tang Zheng gave Xiaobai a dose of precaution. Xiaobai didn't think so much. He nodded thoughtfully and said, "Thank you for your advice, Master. With Master in charge, the rascals won't be able to succeed." Tang Zheng shook his head and patted Xiaobai's shoulder, saying, "Xiaobai, this is your home. You are their emperor. You have to stand at the forefront." Ah. Chapter 1703. Xiaobai came back to his senses and asked blankly, Master, what do you mean? You fought for all of this, so of course you're the one standing at the front. Tang Zheng knew Xiaobai's intentions and said patiently, Xiaobai, sky beyond heaven is your home. These people trust you the most, do you understand? But I believe in you, Master. Xiaobai said stubbornly. Tang Zheng shook his head and said, Wait until sky beyond heaven stabilizes, then I will leave. After that, everything will depend on you. Xiaobai's expression darkened. He was not afraid of fighting alone, but was used to having Tang Zheng by his side. He said worriedly, Master, without you, how can we defeat that traitor? Tang Zheng encouraged him. Xiaobai, you have to believe in yourself. You are far stronger than you think. You will definitely defeat Hao Tianwang. You have to have confidence. Xiaobai hung his head dejectedly. Xiaobai, pull yourself together. You are a descendant of the imperial family, the emperor of countless people in sky beyond heaven. Do you understand? Do you want to disappoint me? Tang Zheng's expression darkened as he sternly reprimanded him. Xiaobai raised his head and bit his lips. Seeing Tang Zheng's encouraging expression, confidence slowly spread from the bottom of his heart. Finally he nodded heavily and said, Master, I will not disappoint you. Tang Zheng smiled with gratification. When the somersault cloud arrived at the wildlands, many people came forward to welcome it. They saw the familiar somersault cloud from afar. They were both expectant and worried, afraid that something bad would happen. Yi Dingdang, Wu and Lu Qingmei stood at the front of the group. The three of them were the most worried about Tang Zheng. Although they knew that Tang Zheng's cultivation was strong, the enemy was also strong. Success or failure was completely unpredictable. In midair, Tang Zheng saw them. He tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and soared into the air. He descended from the sky and gently landed in front of the three people. The three of them excitedly rushed forward and hung onto Tang Zheng's body. Ha ha ha. Tang Zheng laughed loudly and hugged the three of them tightly. He patted their backs and comforted them. I'm an unkillable cockroach. Why are you so worried about me? Yi Dingdang angrily punched him and said, You're not worried at all. You made the three of us so worried that we couldn't sleep. Yes, it's my fault. This time is too special. I'll definitely bring you guys along next time. Tang Zheng quickly surrendered. The three of them rolled their eyes at him and said, That's more like it. After pausing for a moment he hurriedly asked, What's the outcome? The somersault cloud landed on the savage lands. Xiaobai, the four symbols, and the Shura all disembarked. They immediately attracted the attention of everyone. Not many people noticed that Xiaobai was carrying the Kuanpeng. That was because it was too different from the image in everyone's mind. It was too easy to overlook. The Grandmaster hurriedly went to Xiaobai's side and sized him up. He didn't find any injuries. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. Grandmaster, don't worry. I'm fine. Xiaobai smiled. Seeing that the four of them had returned safely, everyone was concerned about the success or failure of the mission. Yi Dingdang repeatedly asked. Tang Zheng didn't keep them in suspense. He pointed at the Kuanpeng and said, Isn't this the result? Swoosh. Immediately, all eyes focused on the Kuanpeng. Not knowing what was going on, Yi Dingdang asked doubtfully, Is this Xiaobai's new pet? Pet. Tang Zheng and Xiaobai laughed at the same time. Tang Zheng pointed at the Kuanpeng and said, Everyone look carefully. What exactly is it? The Grandmaster cried out in surprise, Kuanpeng. Ha ha ha, Grandmaster has sharp eyes. You guessed right. It is the Kuanpeng. Xiaobai couldn't hide his excitement as he said. Everyone was shocked. They had seen the Kuanpeng's huge body. It was completely different from this little thing. How could this be the Kuanpeng? But when they looked carefully, other than the size, it was very similar to the Kuanpeng. It really is the Kuanpeng. Everyone turned pale with fright as they gradually accepted this reality. How did the Kuanpeng become like this? Everyone had this question in their hearts. Tang Zheng signaled to Xiaobai. Xiaobai understood and explained, The Kuanpeng can change its size. The Grandmaster asked doubtfully, But in my memory the Kuanpeng can't change its size. That was in the past. After the Kuan-peng was damaged and was repaired by Hao Tianwang, it had the ability to change its size. Everyone suddenly understood. Tian Chanzi was more interested in the experience of this trip and quickly asked about it. Xiaobai had already been instructed by Tang Zheng and slowly explained. Although his words were simple, it quickly attracted the attention of the crowd. Everyone was overwhelmed with emotions, and their hearts were undulating. How much courage and strength was required to take the risk alone, but still obtain a complete victory? Everyone could understand without even thinking about it. Especially the leaders of the righteous faction. They didn't know the purpose of Tang Zheng's trip. Only then did they know that they were pulling the tooth from the tiger's mouth. They actually took the Kuan-peng from Hao Tianwang. How difficult was this? They were very clear about this since they were chased by Hao Tianwang's subordinates all these years. But this mission was still successful. They didn't know what words to use to describe it. They could only praise it in their hearts. A leader asked curiously, "What's so special about the Kuan-peng that you have to take the risk?" Xiaobai explained, "The Kuan-peng is the foundation of the Outland. It's as important as the tree of life to the human world." At the mention of the tree of life, all the righteous factions suddenly understood. They might have heard of the legend of the tree of life. It was the key to the survival of a world. Suddenly, the eyes of the people looking at the Kuan-peng changed drastically. There was a trace of awe in their eyes. "What's the use of taking back the Kuan-peng?" someone asked. Xiaobai turned to look at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng nodded at Xiaobai. Xiaobai understood and patted the back of the Kuan-peng. He said, "Let's wait and see." On the way back, the two had already discussed the next action. Since these people asked, they might as well let everyone see and use this to completely intimidate them. The Kuan-peng had already been instructed. It rose into the air and flew towards the sky. At the same time, it rapidly changed. When it rose into the air, it had already turned into its real body. One couldn't see the end of it. It made people admire it. But many people didn't know what was going on. They looked at the Kuan-peng blankly. Only a few people had seen the tree of life turn the desert into an oasis. So their hearts were filled with anticipation. Many pairs of eyes were fixed on the Kuan-peng. A ray of light appeared on the Kuan-peng's body. This ray of light wasn't very strong, but it was full of vitality. The ray of light fell from the sky and turned into countless raindrops, sprinkling on the wilderness. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.